Good morning. Welcome. Everybody excited to be here? We can't be more excited for you to be here as well. So we're going to go through, I got just a few slides this morning to kick this thing off, and we're going to start right now. So I'm Jupiter. I'm the guy that kind of helps do all the logistics to get the conference rolling. We'll introduce a lot of the committee members and other folks here in just a few minutes, but we're part of what we call the Utah Saint organization here. How many of you guys know what that is? Most of you probably, hopefully do. The other thing I want to see is how many of you guys are here for the first time? This is your first SAINTCON. Okay, there should be almost 40% of you guys are here for the first time, based off our registration numbers. Want to just let you know what SAINTCON is for those of you that are new. For those of you that are old hat, you got about 3 more minutes to sleep this morning. So SAINTCON is a cybersecurity conference. That's our mission. We call it Utah's premier cybersecurity conference because it just is the coolest conference, we think, for security in Utah. There are a bunch of other conferences that are great. We're not going to say anything negative about any of the other ones. It's a big security community that we have here in Utah. Excuse me. I almost tear up when I say this. But it's one of the best out there anywhere. The Utah security community is incredible. And so for us here at SAINTCON, cybersecurity is our mission. Most of you probably have something to do with cybersecurity in your day-to-day work, or you have a deep interest in some of these types of things. Some of you might just be IT professionals that have to deal with everything else. But when you're here, you're going to learn a lot about cybersecurity, and that's why we're here. Next couple of things for us. We want to let you know that this year we sold out again, which isn't a surprise, but we sold out at basically 1,100 tickets. And so throughout the course of the conference and things, there's probably about 700 or 800 of you in here, and the rest are probably downstairs trying to get that really cool badge at this point. But it's a gigantic conference. It's growing every single year. But I want to give you a fair warning. Next year, we're not going to increase the number of tickets. So if you're going to want to join us at SAINTCON, you're going to need to register early to make sure you get one, because it will probably sell out earlier. Okay? Next thing that I want to talk about just briefly, and I won't make them come up to the stage because most of them aren't even in the room at this point, but we have a lot of people that make SAINTCON happen. What everybody should understand is that this conference, when you're interacting with people, please understand one important thing. Everybody that participates and helps run SAINTCON is a volunteer. There's nobody that gets paid any money to do what we're doing here. This isn't some big opportunity for somebody to present themselves as anything more than just a member of the community and volunteering to help. And so when you're mad about something, you can talk to a staff member, but be nice knowing that they're a volunteer. But I want to introduce a few of them for you. So this is our committee this year. I won't go through and read all of their names, but there's about 15 of us. These are the people that have been working since April this year on various aspects of the conference. And so they're kind of outlined there. They do some incredible work. Many of them have returned year over year over year to help us out with the conference. And just to give you an understanding of the magnitude that we're talking about in volunteerism, these are the staff members. We have 3 levels of volunteerism at SAINTCON. The committee members are the ones that are here doing a lot of things through the entire year. Staff members, these are the people that are running all of the different challenges and important events that are happening at SAINTCON in one way or another. And if I missed somebody and your name's not up there, I apologize, but there's a lot of you. But then we get down to volunteers. There are almost 10% of the conference. There's almost 100 people total that are volunteering to be here to help make this conference work. And so would you please give them a round of applause and thank them for their efforts. I know they'll appreciate that. The next thing that makes our conference possible, and the reason why, as I put it on the slide there, that we get to have nice things is because of our sponsors. And so this year, we sold our Uber sponsor slot, which is kind of fun for us. And CenturyLink has that honor. They are our Uber sponsor. And we want to make sure that We put them in the right spot downstairs. You're going to walk through. I actually added lights. I don't know if they're in the room, but those green lights I put in there last night for you guys to light up that cool truck that you've got in there. But CenturyLink is our Uber sponsor, and to help introduce CenturyLink and what they're here to do, because they are a telco company, but they do so much more, I'd like to invite David Dubois to the stand here.
Good morning, SAINTCON. We're really happy to be your Uber sponsor for the conference this year. But, you know, I could tell, I know what you're thinking. What's a CenturyLink guy doing up here? Aren't they the telephone company? Aren't they the internet service provider? Is he going to want to talk about fiber route miles? Yeah, I am. Just for a minute, though, because it's really a segue to something that's a lot more interesting. All right, so we're in 60 countries, got 100,000 plus buildings lit up, and we've driven 450,000 global fiber route miles, right? What do I want you to take away from that? Global backbone of epic proportion. Everybody got that? That's all you need to know, right? All right. Now I want to throw in a couple of different numbers. 130 billion net flow records a day. 500 million DNS queries a day. That's important because we've taken this global backbone of epic proportion and turned it into the world's largest threat intelligence sensor, right? What's that mean? That means, one, we can see threats happening on the backbone of the network before they reach our customers, before they penetrate our customers' peripheral defenses. We can actually observe firsthand the behavior in real time of adversaries trying to attack your assets and claim your intellectual property. When the time is right and when the conditions all line up, we'll take down some of these guys. We take down about 45 botnets each and every month, right? And by the way, we can deploy this product without having to deploy customer premises equipment to do things like sensing, collecting, sourcing information, and correlating information, right? So, in fact, we provided threat intelligence services to Black Hat this year and DDoS mitigation services, and we got them both turned up within a couple of hours, and they ran throughout the conference. So, at CenturyLink, threat intelligence isn't the whole story for security. It's the core that informs the rest of the periphery, right? So our threat intelligence intellectual property informs things like our enterprise secure gateway product called Adaptive Network Security. Think next generation firewall in the cloud, right? It informs our DDoS mitigation services. Informs our, you can put it together with something called secure log monitoring, and secure log monitoring will take our threat intelligence and correlate it with data from your devices so that you can see firsthand which of your devices are vulnerable to attack or that are under attack. We also have, of course, a pretty good array of customer premises firewalls and defense equipment, and our threat intelligence also informs those devices. Now, our marketing guys wouldn't let me off the hook without a couple of big numbers, so here we go. So all that comes together to essentially allow us to monitor and envision 1.3 billion security events each and every day. And we monitor actively 5,000 command and control managed botnets each and every day as well. And like I said, when the condition's right, when the time is right, we'll actually take some of those down. We don't want it to be like a whack-a-mole thing where we take one down and it pops up in another area just as quickly. So so the conditions have to be right for us. We also collaborate with a lot of other folks that do things similar to us, and so if we're noticing a very active botnet on somebody else's network, we'll call them up and say, hey, how can we help get this guy taken care of. And I got to say that, you know, almost always the cooperation is really awesome in that space. I did mention we were at Black Hat this year, providing threat intelligence services. This is essentially the dashboard that the folks at Black Hat were looking at. So there's some pretty wild stuff going on here. There was about 16,130 command and control active events going on. So folks that were at Black Hat did have communication with command and control servers out there. There were 40,000 attack vectors going on. There was something like so the way to read this is the colorful bar is the number of IPs that are attacking, and the bar above that, the numbers above that, are the number of events that are happening. So just wanted to let you see what we're doing at Black Hat for a minute. And of course, we at CenturyLink, just like everybody else, we don't get the job done by ourselves. We have a bunch of really awesome partners, right? So a bunch of them are here today. So go check out NetScout Arbor, check out Fortinet, Looking Glass, and Thales. Other close partners of ours are Palo Alto, RiskSense, and Versa. I'm told they're not here today. Maybe they are, but as far as I know, they're not. Anyways, we come together with these guys to round out our product offering so that we can cover more bases, right? And last but not least, I just want to say I'll be here for the conference, so they're not letting me take the keynote spot here, so that's for people smarter than me, so I've got to get off the stage. But but if you'd like to come visit, I'll be around the conference. Come up and see us. I'm also on a panel tomorrow afternoon. It's called Do You See What We See? Right, and I sort of gave you a little taste of that on how we go about seeing what we see. So that's it for CenturyLink today, and I hope you have a great conference.
All right, we have just a few more things. Oh, you didn't put up your last slide. It's a cool one. So the next thing I want to talk about is just a couple of the rest of the sponsors. We didn't give them much mic time. We wanted to make sure we just got things kicked off and got right into all of the fun stuff. But there are a lot of other sponsors that help us with SAINTCON this year. Our gold sponsors this year are Cisco and CompuNet. I was asked to do this too. And so we appreciate them. CompuNet, for those of you that don't know, they bring that red versus blue village that they've revamped this year. We've made an incredibly awesome space for them. Go visit them as well. Cisco's an incredible partner in security, networking, and other things. Many of you guys work with them. Our silver sponsors, Comcast Business, Bluehost, which is new this year. We appreciate their involvement. CrowdStrike, Qualys, Converge One. And we round it out with our bronze sponsors, BrainTrace, RSA, Proactive, etc. So we appreciate their involvement in the conference. So give them a round of applause. Thank you, guys. And if we haven't said it already, these are the reasons why you have badges as cool as you do around your neck. That's how we fund those kinds of things. Last few items that I wanted to let everybody know up front so you can enjoy the conference as much as possible. So a few logistics. Meals. There was an option when you registered to pay for meals or not. Meals are going to be served. If you're paying for a meal plan, you'll have a little card that will cut off the little thing on the bottom. They'll be served on all 3 levels this year. But there is no lunchroom like we had last year, and so you're going to have to find a spot. The ballrooms will be open for eating. Upstairs, a bunch of the different rooms. The entire deck, the outdoor deck is available. That's a nice place to hang out for lunch. So please find food wherever you are. You will need your meal pass to get into there. But what I want to also, well, hold on. Let's talk about this one first, too. You'll notice on the schedule that lunches are an hour and a half long. And this is to facilitate all the people that need to go out within the neighborhoods here close by and eat food somewhere else or do other things. But it's also a key time to allow you to network with each other. And we found out last year that this was an effective time frame. So find a group of people, go sit down next to them and learn what they do, learn who they are, and network a little bit. It's going to enhance your time while you're here at SAINTCON. We'll have some crazy videos in probably some of the ballrooms during lunchtime and such as well. But most importantly, just relax. I should give myself that advice. Last year I talked to you about how I hate getting up in front of people. Just relax and enjoy the conference. It's not up here on the slide show because I forgot to put it in last night at midnight. But I want to make sure that you understand that all people that are attending SAINTCON can have access to all of the drinks and afternoon snacks and things that pop up. Okay, so if you find a cooler that has a bunch of soda in it, you're welcome to take those. Okay, we opened that up this year through the cooperation between the convention center being able to give us a good price on those this year, and a couple of other things kind of aligned. So drinks are back for those of you that have been at SAINTCON for a long time and knew that we used to do that. Yeah, there's at least one wow out there, right? So please enjoy those. The only caveat that I would say is we still have to pay for every can that you take. So take what you're going to drink and drink however much you really want, but don't haul them home okay? If you'd be so kind. Okay, last couple of things real quick. I should be way past this at this point. Conference communications. We're going to have a presentation a little bit later about everything going on at the conference, but I want you guys to start working on this part now. If you go to saintcon.org/comms with 2 M's, there's a link to join the SAINTCON comms Slack. This is where all of the things happen during SAINTCON. It's the communications method. This is how you get in touch with the staff members. This is how you communicate with the contest and events people that are running these challenges and fun things, ask questions and things. You're more apt to get a response there than almost any other place, okay? And then the last thing is we don't print a program that tells you where things are or when things are. Everything is on the website, and so I encourage you to look through it, the schedules, how the contests work. All those things are there for your perusal, so make sure that you're visiting that often. Last thing that we want to do is start off the conference with some incredible keynotes, and we've done an incredible job this year of pulling in some smart, capable people to provide keynotes for us. And so what I'd like to do is just start the transition. We'd like to invite Bonnie Anderson up to the stage to be our first keynote. She's from BYU, does neuroscience-y things. What I will do is, as we transition, there's a better introduction than that Chris can give, but we appreciate so much that she's here. We love to see women in technology, women in security involved in this community and others, and so it's a pleasure to have you kick us off this morning. So come on up.
That one's the one that works. All right, and my slides are up. Let's see. All right, so good morning. I am happy to be here. I am a little different than a lot of you, I think, in a number of ways. And I'm so excited to share with you my research. So I've titled it Using Neuroscience to Improve and I ended up with a double the usability of security. And this is one of the props that I usually bring. This is actually my brain printed out on a 3D printer, and that's one of the things that we offer our subjects who come and work with us is we scan their brains in the MRI as part of our research, and then we give them, it's an STL file that they can then print on a 3D printer. So if you don't think it's fun walking through airport with the brain and they ask, are you a doctor? And yes, I am, but not a real doctor, right? I've got a PhD. But that'll motivate you to come see me later in the day if you would like to get your brain scanned, be a research subject in my research. So it's a little bit sad, but not completely unfounded. Given a choice between dancing pigs and security, users will pick dancing pigs every time. So you guys probably know that phrase, or this one, about clicky losers, or your PEBCAC about the problem exists between the chair and the keyboard, or the ID10T, right? And you probably have 1,000 more that I don't know. That there is some basis to that, but If we just assume all of security problems are due to lazy or careless or incompetent users, then that's actually really not a fair thing. And so what our research team has been doing is looking at ways that we can improve computer security by making it cooperate with how our brains actually work instead of always fighting biology. So we call ourselves the BYU Neurosecurity Lab, and I'm wearing our little logo here. And lab sounds like we actually have a physical place where we meet. It's more an association of people. And the people are these. If you go to our website, neurosecurity.byu.edu, you'll see more about us and our students that work with us. But we are the 4 primary faculty members who work on this, and you may know some of these. But so I'm Bonnie Anderson. I'm kind of the UI UX expert of the team. Jeff Jenkins is my colleague at BYU in the Information Systems Department. We're in the Marriott School of Business, and he is our mouse cursor tracking expert. He's actually one of the experts in the world on that. It's fun to work with him. Brock Kerwin is a neuroscientist, and he actually runs the BYU MRI research facility. And that's how we get all of that background. That I've learned a lot about neuroscience, but I'm still not an expert. And then Tony Vance probably is the one that most of you would have heard of, if any of us, and he's our security expert. He's recently moved to Temple University, but we still do research. So, if users are the weakest link, what can we do to improve that? Well, I'm going to talk today about 3 areas that we've been studying. So one is called dual task interference, the next one is called habituation, and the third one is generalization, or the generalization of habituation. And we've been doing research for about 6 or 7 years in these areas, and I'm going to give you kind of an overview of some of the things we've studied and some of the things we've found, and also some takeaways about ways that we can improve it to, from an engineering or a design perspective to make it easier for users to behave more securely. So first we're going to watch a little video, and I'd like you to look for implicit bias in this video.
Now, what happened?
Peter hit me in the nose with a football. I can't go to the dance like this.
Well, I'm sure it was an accident, sweetheart.
An eye for an eye. That's what Dad always says.
I never said that, honey.
Shut up! Time to teach Peter a lesson.
Marcia, eat a Snickers.
Why?
You get a little hostile when you're hungry. Better? Better.
Marcia, Marcia, Marcia.
Jan, this isn't about you.
It never is.
You've seen that commercial, is that right? And I actually was Googling photos of Marcia and Jan to show one of my daughters last night. She's like, what is this Marcia thing? And we were able to find the football smash nose picture. Some of you may remember that. The thing about this is that's a fun little video, but how many of you noticed top left-hand, right-hand corner? The little security message popped up. And that's what we're going to be talking about. That dual task interference is a very common thing. Sometimes we talk about multitasking. This is another way to refer to it, and a lot of us think we're really good at it. I feel like this a lot of the time, and I'm pretty good at 4 of those things, but I'm dropping 2 of them. And you know what? The brain is terrible at it, and if you think you're good at it, you're wrong. You might know you're terrible, you might be better than some, but in general, our brains are not really great at juggling a lot of things at the same time. Like a computer, you have to switch back and forth. So, and this is a fearful one. Please never do that. People who think they can do this are wrong on that. But oftentimes we end up with a message like this, you know, we're just doing our thing, and this update comes up, and it interrupts what we were doing. And do I need to quit what I'm doing right now? Especially, you know, depending if this is Word and I'm in the middle of typing something, that's a really bad time. But just in general, I was doing something and this interrupted me. So how bad is this problem? Well, we did some research. Here's a little video footage of me. Actually, it's in reverse. You may have noticed gravity working differently. I don't know how that ended up. But anyway, this is our scanner. This is our MRI scanner that we have at BYU. And we do functional MRI scans, meaning instead of just structural scans like you may have had for a knee injury or back or whatever, we actually have people, while they're in the scanner, complete tasks. And when they're completing those tasks, we can measure blood flow differences in their brain, so we can figure out given a baseline that there should be blood everywhere all the time in your brain, but is there an increase in certain areas in response to the stimulus? So that's what we do when we do MRI research, or fMRI. The F stands for functional, meaning they're completing a task at the time. And so we have a baseline. You always have to figure out what each individual person's baseline is. And then we gave them a memory task. And my colleague Brock Kerwin is also one of the memory gurus in the world. So this is right up his area. So we give you any of these participants a 7-digit number, and we tell them, okay, you need to remember this. And officially, it's called encoding. Remembering is encoding. So we give you a 7-digit number, and then later on, you have to select that 7-digit number from this list. Now, while I was talking about it, you guys probably knew that I was going to ask you to recall it. So how many of you think you know the right answer here? Quite a few. Which one is it? It's 3. But what else were you doing during the time? Listen to me a little bit, but you're also thinking, okay, I remember it ends in a 9. It was a 5-9. They all start with a 4. And that's kind of a tricky thing. 7 is kind of the max that we can handle. That was why phone numbers maxed at 7 for a long time, until we had to learn everybody's area codes. Okay, now we also have a security task. So one of the areas that we like to study are extensions. So for example, this is in the Chrome browser for a weather extension, and when you install extensions, you get these permission warnings. And oftentimes they're kind of normal things. Like for example, on this one, this weather extension would like to access weather or information from weather.com. Well, that seems reasonable. Detect your physical location. Why would they do that? Well, because it's probably trying to pull from, what is the weather today in Provo. If it can tell from my browser, then that's helpful. And test for internet connectivity is actually a garbage one we just made up. But there are other ones that we have tried to train these subjects in our studies that are risky, or they're an overreach, or they are asking for information that's inappropriate for this type of extension. So for example, at the bottom, read and modify your browsing history. Okay, that is not a good thing for a weather app to be doing. That doesn't make any sense. So, or the other one, access all data on your computer and the websites you visit. Now you guys may think, so these are all actually legitimate permissions that are out there, and depending on what the extension does, it may seem appropriate. But for a weather app, we have trained the users, and this is like the end of a quiz, like a screenshot, that these are the safe ones. These, access list your signed-in devices, that's okay for this. That's not a huge concern, but these red ones, those are risky. Please don't accept anything that has that. That's an overreach. That's a risk. All right, so high DTI, that's when we have high dual task interference, meaning that we're trying to get them doing a bunch of things at the same time. So they memorize the code, your 7-digit number, and then we say, oh, security task, should we allow this one? Should we go ahead and install this one, or does this one have the risky permissions? And then we come back and say, oh, and what was your 7-digit number? So what we're looking for are differences in activity in the medial temporal lobe, areas such as amygdala or hippocampus. You've probably heard of those two. Amygdala is more of our flight or fright, and then amygdala is, or not amygdala, I just said that one. Hippocampus is memory. So comparing the blood flow, we actually see a decrease in those areas because we're preoccupied. So right there in the MTL, the blue, the lighter colors mean a decrease of activity. That we have less activity in the brain in those areas when we're trying to have them do these two tasks nearly simultaneously. So in fact, when we had subjects that were not given the memory task, right, if they see the warning, should I accept it or not? Is this risky or not? They chose the wrong answer. They disregarded 7% of the time. But for those that also had that memory task, they were trying to remember the number, oh, should I install this? Is this risky or not? I don't know. They had the wrong answer almost 23% of the time. Now you guys can probably guess, how did they do on the memory task? Do you think they did better or worse when we interrupted them with security warnings? Worse. Of course they did worse. We know, and there's a lot of research, that if you interrupt people, they're going to do worse on the thing that was interrupted. But this is interesting, our research, because we're saying that task, when we interrupt, compared to when that task is done at a different time, we do worse on that task. And if that interrupting task happens to be a security task, that can be pretty bad. And so we wanted to try, well, what if we move this around a little bit? Could we be a little more polite, a little more patient? Sometimes we can change when we throw out those security messages. So what if we switched it? Okay, so what if they had to do this primary task that they're doing of memorizing things and then remembering them, and then they did the security task? If we could just wait until they were done, then have them do the security task. And that is what we call the low dual task interference, the low DTI. And we can see that the people who did poorly on the security task, there were far fewer that disregarded the warning when we had it at a better time. So if there's a way that we could defer or delay, then people do better not only on the remembering the number task, that main thing that they were working on, but the security task, that will get better response if we can save those messages for a time that's better. Well, that's a lovely experiment. People in a lab lying in a contained little thing like this with loud noise. How realistic is that? That's one of the questions we always get about our research. So we decided to do a field experiment with the Chrome browser. We figured that's a pretty common thing that people use. And sometimes you have messages like this one that they come up and you can't say, oh, I see that you're busy. You were gonna go check the news. We'll come back later. This is one that you can't defer, you know, it needs to happen. But there are others, like this one, that can be deferred. So our research is funded in part by the National Science Foundation, but also Google Faculty Research Awards. And so as part of that, we visit their campus periodically, and we talk a lot with the Chrome security team. And in our discussions, they said, hey, we have this one security message that actually can be changed, the timing on that currently it runs at this algorithm where we run a certain amount of things on, you know, the opening of the browser, and this is actually only in Windows. But then based on that, that's when that message pops up. And so they agreed to work with us that we're gonna try timing that message. What if we did it this time, this time, this time, this time? We came up with 9 times that we thought would be a little more polite or a little more interruptive. And so we came up with this little scenario. And by the way, we call this research the Snickers research. Everything has a little name that I was actually the one, I'm like, what would be something funny that would distract them and whatever. So the basic setup was people thought, and this is Amazon Mechanical Turkers, they thought that they were just gonna watch a video, and then on a new tab, they had to write some feedback about if it was funny or clever or whatever. That's kind of the setup that we had for them. And then depending on which treatment they got, the security message would pop up at different times. And then we would watch to see how many of them disregarded the message and compared to how many responded to it. And we found, some low dual task interference times are after a video. High would be during the video, for example, the one that I showed you. On loading of a page, when it's taking a while and you're not really doing anything, and we actually created that, you know, an artificial little spinning thing where they're like, oh, my internet's slow. No, we put that in there. Or waiting for a web-based task to complete, okay? So you're submitting your little response that we asked you to do, and there's some feedback showing that it's in process, okay? But your brain has spare capacity right then. And here's kind of our summary. So in the low dual task conditions there up at the top, we found that the disregard was substantially lower than the high dual task. So if you're on your way to close a window and it comes up right then, you're on your way. You're not gonna pay attention to that. Or if it shows while they were typing their little summary, that's a bad time. They're preoccupied with something else. Please don't interrupt them right then. So that was kind of a fun study. Here it is graphically, a huge difference. So some takeaways from that study is the brain isn't good at handling interruptions. And probably you guys already know that when you try to do something and you get interrupted at work. And for a security message, if there's a way that we can change it to a more convenient time for the user, then they are more likely to notice it, read it, and respond appropriately. Okay, second area, habituation. So this is our way of paying attention to the critical things and tuning out some of the repetitiveness, some of the things that may not be as important. So here is the California sea slug. Isn't that a lovely thing? I'm gonna keep going here for a minute while I talk, because you're gonna get a scale comparison in a minute so you know what it is. The reason I have this lovely video is because this is one of the first animals where habituation was proven. And they're able to show with different stimuli that it would learn to tune out certain things. And is it creeping you out already? Fascinating in a way. But just showing that even the most basic of organisms have this habituation, that if we always lived on this heightened sense of awareness of everything going on, then that's unsustainable. That's an untenable way of living, to respond to every possible interaction. And so our brain, human brains are even better than these sea slugs. So there's his hand coming on in there. I mean, that's a good sized slug. All right. So it goes on in our heads, and thank goodness it does. Otherwise, we couldn't exist in a normal sort of life. But what does that mean for security? Well, here we are doing our thing, and we get a pop-up, and we don't think it's a critical thing. We've seen things like it before, and so we just tune it out. Well, how bad is it? Depends. So you've probably seen a lot of these where, you just get them over and over, and you tune them out even if maybe they are important. So we ran a study, and we showed these images. So we actually had 40 of them, and we're watching the brain. So this is back in the MRI scanner. And the top two are left superior parietal and right superior parietal, so kind of there. And then medial prefrontal cortex, so your PFC's in the front, so that's kind of middle. And then this other one, left retrosplenial cortex. Those two on the bottom, those are more indicative of the default mode network, meaning kind of the space out, the tuning out, the paying less attention. So that's something fun that we can see is not only things that cause you to pay attention, but things that cause you to zone out more. And we found over more exposures to these images with those top graphs that we're getting less blood flow in the areas that are paying attention areas, and we get more blood flow in the areas of I'm tuning this out, I'm bored. So what can we do about it? Well, we decided to, and you notice these are our Chrome extensions that I showed in our first area of research. We decided to change the message a little bit. So you'll see the language on it is the same. We haven't changed the things that it's asking for. That's a different study in comprehension that we're working on. But we have just changed the appearance. We call it the polymorphic variations, right? So if you see something and it's still got the same content, but there's something about it that looks a little bit different, will that trigger you to pay attention? And we added, in addition to just these static images, 4 animations. So we had a twirl, we also had the zoom, is what we call this, and the jiggle. And there's actually a region of your brain, HMT+, that's actually really good at catching motion. And you guys are already thinking, I hate those stupid banner, pop-ups, whatever. I'm getting to that. We're going to talk about how to have the maximum effect on security behavior with the minimum annoyance factor, because that's a real thing. And you may not be surprised to find these red lines showing that we get greater response, especially kind of occipital area of the parietal here. People are paying more attention to the messages if there's something slightly different in the appearance. They're not tuning it out as much when they find out, when they see something's just a little bit different, it catches their eye. And these were our 4 most effective. So the one that was red, the one that has a little triangle, the little bit of jiggle there, and the zoom. And I've joked, so I'm a professor, I teach a lot of classes. If I see the students are tuning me out, then maybe I just need a little jiggle or a little zoom to catch their attention. And so that's what we found worked in this setting. Well, the question is, okay, so that worked in that 1 day's worth of experiments. How long does it last? How much do you need to make these variations? How often do you have to tweak them? So to do that, we did a longitudinal study. So this was actually, and actually all of our research is leading edge. It's been really fun because we are the experts in the world. Nobody's been doing stuff like this. So we've been presenting all around the world and getting a lot of recognition. But this one is something that nobody had ever even thought was possible, to do a longitudinal study of habituation in fMRI. And you'll see in a couple slides, we paired it with a longitudinal mobile study. And this actually got published in our top journal and has won some great accolades in the academic type setting, so that's been nice for me. So what we did is, this is our scanner again, the Siemens 3T in the McDonald building on BYU campus, and we scanned the same subjects every day, same time of day, for 5 days in a row. And we had 2 weeks worth of this. And in addition, at this point, using money from the National Science Foundation, we bought a long-range eye tracker that's MR compatible. Meaning, and we've done a lot of other research with eye tracking, but this one can go in the scan room. And it allows us, and this photo's taken kind of through the tube, allows us to capture eye movement at the same time as we're capturing blood flow. And the reason this is super nice to pair these two technologies is that MRI stuff, the blood flow, it's a little bit slow. So we talk about the temporal resolution's not fantastic. There's like a 3-second delay getting the blood to that area, although the spatial resolution's amazing in these microvoxels. With eye tracking, we've got that temporal resolution, so millisecond precision on. They were looking exactly at this thing when, we measure fixations when this blood flow changed and whatever. So really fine detail on this. And we were able to, using our 4 good ones, comparing to general security messages, we were able to prove over time, and we'll talk a little bit about the day breaks a little bit there, that the red ones sustain that. So even though, you've seen the changes, that lasts longer. That effect lasts more than just one day. And back here, occipital lobe is kind of what we're focusing on there. And then in eye gaze fixation, so this is the data from the eye tracker that we can see as well, the red maintains a higher slope over the blue, that they both decrease, that you're still starting to tune things out, but it maintains a higher degree of attention as measured through eye fixations. Now, recovery. That is a term here. So this is one of the seminal pieces, Thompson and Spencer in '66, about habituation. And they say, well, what if we remove the stimulus for a little while? Can you regain your attention, right? You're tuning things out. If it's withdrawn, then do you pay more attention again? And we did find, with our eye tracking data, some of that. So you see with the day breaks, that overnight you have a chance to refresh your brain, and then you come back in the morning and you're a little more tuned in. So there is some of the recovery, but it still holds up that our polymorphic variations are able to maintain attention better over time than the static normal versions. And as our reviewers say, that's nice and lovely for people who are lying in a scanning tube. Show us for real how it works. So we had a mobile field experiment, and we did adherence behavior. So back to these security type messages. In this case, we had Android users, because Apple and iTunes are a little more locked down, where we had subjects for 3 weeks straight. They had to evaluate a series of apps, and so we wanted them to download at least 3, and then they had this little survey form, and they had to talk about usability and whatever of those, and the category changed each day. It was kind of randomly assigned, so this day seems to be a kind of a fitness day, and it says today's category, health and fitness, and the next day would be entertainment apps, and the next day would be music or something. And so every day, 15 days, they had to evaluate these apps. Now, some of them, and again, you guys know when you install an app, here are the warnings, things that's going to be asking you, is it okay? This is what the app wants to do. Will you allow that? And we trained these subjects, here are some things that you shouldn't be accepting. We're trying, and by the way, it was a fake app store that we made them think we had. These are the 4 things you shouldn't allow. None of the apps that we're asking you to evaluate should ask for these things. If they do, don't install them, because that's risky. So one treatment group got just every day kind of looked the same, and here are the things it wants, and do you accept or do you cancel? Then the other treatment group got our variations, and these are a little bit different from the other ones, just fitting the mobile setting, but similar. You can see, so these guys got the polymorphic ones, and you can probably guess, or I wouldn't be presenting it, how it worked out, right? That we found that the subjects, so this is over 15 days, the people who had the polymorphic variations adhered to the message, meaning they didn't install the risky ones at a much higher rate than those who just had the static, the normal, the status quo. So takeaways from that are, we are wired to tune out things we've seen before. And again, in the big scheme of things, that's probably a good idea. But in a security setting, it can be problematic. So if we can update the UI on our security messages, that can help reduce habituation and make it easier for users to behave securely. So kind of following from habituation, we've got a term called generalization, And specifically, we mean generalization of habituation. And what this is when you see some lovely, friendly messages, some notifications that pop up, and you can do something or not and whatever, and they're just more, informational kind of things a lot of the time. But then we have pretty serious messages. So here's a macro one, and if you're not paying attention to it, you're going to tune it out. One of the problems is that we kind of like a nice look and feel. And if it kind of looks similar, that's a nice UI principle in general. Although I actually teach UX classes right now to our grad students, and we talk about clarity trumps consistency. Do you guys all know that from Steve Krug? That it's more important to be clear than to look lovely. And so that's what we're fighting a little bit here. So how bad is this problem? How bad is it if people are generalizing what we've already seen to something that's different? So for example, well, let me tell you the setup. So, and I was hoping to get a better resolution of this, but it was not working for me. We have, and this one is the one that we call the Batman protocol. And so we had subjects that had to classify images of Batman. Again, you have to come up with some sort of realistic scenario that people are willing to do. And this one we did with Amazon Mechanical Turk. And so we were telling them that we were trying to compare how our computer is able to categorize images compared to how humans are. And specifically, in this case, Batman. Is this an animation, kind of a drawing or whatever, or is this like a photo of a human actor? And so you'll see, that little green check mark there. If they classified it correctly, then they get, oh yes, that seems to be a photo from a movie. So photo is the option there. And we see we've got some bonus earned, so they've got some motivation to pay attention to this. But it also looks like it's just pulling images randomly from websites. What's important about that is it makes us step back a step, and so the subjects or participants don't assume that we have control over the sites that are showing the images. And that's been important for us to maintain the realism that, who knows what's going to pop up there, and if some security warning pops up, do your best. We have not vetted all these images, and of course it's all fake that we have, although we had subjects in a different study, which I'm not really talking about today, with EEG, the little cap on the head and measuring brain activity through this scalp. But they thought their computers were actually hacked by some of the stuff that we were doing, and we had to reassure them that no, at no point was your computer in danger. But we wanted to instill the fear that it could be. So in this particular case, they're classifying Batman, and they have this little progress bar up at the top left, and I'll show you that's what it says. So after each image that they classify, either you got it right or wrong, and just progress bar, you're doing great, you did 9, and so far your accuracy is 88.9%. Plugging away, depending on your treatment, some people got this. So this seems innocuous enough. I don't know, did we verify? We ran this last week. By the way, you guys are the debut audience. We ran this and submitted it to a conference Friday at 1 p.m. So you're the first people to see this. So is it okay if they access your location? And you guys probably always say, don't allow. Why would I ever do that? Unless I'm looking at a store locator, this is always a don't allow. But as you notice, this looks a lot like that. That we even had them kind of the same size in the same part of the screen, and they're different, but they've got the same look and feel. Well, some other people got this, and we made this up fourfold as some dummy extension. And you see it's got some things there that seem a little risky, a little overreachy if you're classifying images of Batman. So you should probably be saying cancel, right? I don't want that. Again, it's a little bit bigger, a little bit different. Then we moved on towards this one. It wants to dump out, Bitcoin. That's hot. And it's an executable. And so you guys all think no one would ever do that, right? So that is a more serious warning. And then we also have this one, Excel macro, which again is a really bad thing when you're classifying Batman images. Now this is the one that I say in certain cases when you've asked your colleague to send you the Excel file with a VBA. But yeah, if you're just working Batman images, this should definitely be a no. And what we found, and then, so some people are concerned that you just see so many images and it's just fatigue overall. You hear warning fatigue, and we kind of blur that a little bit with habituation. But just fatigue in general, cognitive fatigue. I've been looking at these stupid Batman images and whatever's popping up, and I'm tired of it. And so we threw in this little duck. Little's the wrong thing. This duck picture. And this is actually in Pittsburgh. It was an art installment that the duck has made it around the world. And two of us, so I did my PhD at Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh, and then another of our research colleagues also did his grad work in Pittsburgh. So we call it the Pittsburgh duck, and just to be goofy, we added, "You're doing great." And we were going to have cancel the message, okay or cancel or whatever, and then we thought, well, that might blur the line, so we threw in there, "Yes, I am." That if you want to get past the Pittsburgh duck, you have to agree that, yes, you're doing great. But what that is, we called it the palate cleanser for a while until we decided on the duck. But what we can find, and I know these graphs are not as friendly. This is me pulling it from our paper from Friday that we did not take the time to make lovely, high res, that the click-through behavior is highest. So we had, it either showed up right at time one, like right at the beginning of the task, or if they'd already processed 15 images, capture their behavior there. And so red is the one on top, the Firefox permission, that's the one, hey, can we access your location? And you see more people clicked on that. And the other one, the Firefox extension, hey, fourfold, would like that. And those looked, a little more similar, same place on the screen, and a little more common look and feel. And the more concerning ones, the ones that we wanted a low bar and a high bar. The ones that we said, if they generalize the little progress message with, here's a macro, do you want it? Then that's really a problem. And we were able to prove here that common look and feel really does make a difference. We always thought it would, but here's the evidence with about 400 subjects, I think, that yes, we can prove from how they behave at the beginning and how they behave later that this habituation is generalizing. So they have not seen that macro warning or that permission warning before. That's new in this study. They've seen that stupid 97%, 95%, whatever, each time. And so they're blurring that progress message with this unique security message. And my colleague Jeff, who's the mouse cursor tracking expert, is able to show how quickly they do things. This is a good measure of attention or inattention, also fraud. He does a lot of cool stuff with that, fraud detection. That we can say that people are very quickly getting rid of the security messages or acting inappropriately on them, the ones that look similar. And depending on the pop-up type, so this is the reaction time, how quickly we do that. So, some takeaways. That frequent notifications, so nice friendly messages, can also cause problem with security behavior, those can cause us to tune out the security messages. And so we need to design our security messages to be visually distinct. Now, for my earlier points, we talk about we need to have them at nice, appropriate times. Please don't interrupt people at bad times. Maybe you guys have seen certain things that say, we need to update whatever right now, and those are the worst. I was so pleased, it's been a couple years now, when I went on a Skype call with some colleagues, and it said, Skype would like to update upon closing. And I could select that yes or no. I'm like, yes, I should update this, but now is actually the very worst time, and you guys knew that you let me know an update is available, and right now, because I might forget at the end of the call, I can say, yes, please do this at the end. At the end is a more convenient time for me. So we need our messages to be at a good time. They need to be visually distinct from innocuous notifications, and they need to have variation that they're not only distinct from notifications, but from other security messages so that we can distinguish in our brains which ones are the most important. So those were my three areas that we're talking about today. And again, brains are fun. Come talk to me if you want to learn more about brains, or I can show you how to sign up to be a research participant for the MRI end of things. Or I could just tell you, memory.byu.edu. it'll take a few clicks to get in there to the participant, and then the survey in Qualtrics to make sure it's safe to stick you in a huge magnet. Again, users can be the weakest link, and still training is good, and all the CETA and yeah. So I'm not letting them off the hook, but I do think that we can use the principles that we've learned from our studies using neuroscience or neurophysiological tools can help us make it easier for users. Again, this is our contact information, and I'll be around today for any questions. I actually have to teach classes at my school tomorrow, so you won't see me here tomorrow or probably Thursday, but I'm happy to respond to emails or let you see our research that's going on there, and thank you again for having me here.
All right, our next keynote is Richard Thiem, and he's back there, and I can barely see anything right now. He's right there. All right. And if you read on his bio, I apologize to Bonnie that I didn't get up and do this. I forgot I was doing it. But Bonnie is an amazing person, is doing amazing work. As you notice, they're working with Google to produce these messages. Not just doing it on their own, but they're also working with the National Science Foundation and with the White House specifically with their BRAIN initiative, which is way amazing. Richard is an amazing person as well with what he does. He's quite the individual. He's been a minister, a professional novelist, author, and he just loves DEF CON. For those of you who've been to DEF CON, I'm sure you've heard him speak at least once. Richard's been there for 23 years in a row. He's got a pretty good record. And we love it because Richard really speaks from the heart, and he can add more if he wants to as well. Here's Richard Thiem.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be back in Deseret. I lived here for 7 years, and I learned coming from the Midwest that autumn comes vertically to you here rather than horizontally. And so looking up at the mountain mahogany and oak turning red and the aspen turning yellow and the evergreens staying green reminds me of what a joy it was to go up in those canyons in any season, any weather, and cross country for hours and disappear into the back country. And this is where I met my wife Shirley, who is here with me. We were married 35 years ago next month in Salt Lake City. So this is full of nothing but good memories for us. Now, that first presentation was a terrific, not only in itself, but base for me to segue into what I'm going to be talking about. For security purposes, you know that everything that Bonnie just outlined is dual use, because everything developed in the world of IT and in the world of security and in the world of neuroscience and in the world of bio, which is now ported to biohacking and body hacking, is dual use, and that if it's developed for a good purpose, it can immediately become a negative of the positive and be used otherwise. What Bonnie did is, in a way, what I want to do too. She illuminated how processes, which are generally unconscious, can be made conscious. Now, this is what therapy does, right? You go in and you think you behave according to certain constraints and rubrics, and then you discover, if you go deep enough, if you have an ally in the therapist, that in fact, some of the things that motivated your decisions may have been completely unconscious. It is my experience that our unconscious only allows us to know that which is unconscious when it no longer is a problem for us. So the rest of the time, we are often operating on automatic. And so my intention today is to not only not to do therapy with you, but to turn some things that might be unconscious into consciousness. And the way I call that process is it's turning context into content. Because even those of us, and maybe especially those of us who are in the industries that have grown up around the computer revolution, have a hard time grasping the sheer enormity of what it is that has happened in the last couple of decades, and how it has transformed our structure, our internal structure, the way we think. And what it's resulted in is what I call cognitive artifacts, totally different ways of thinking about things, but also about us, who we are, who essentially our identities are, both as individuals and as parts of networks or organizational structures. So let me give you an example. One he didn't mention is I taught English literature at the University of Illinois in my 20s, and Shakespeare everybody read for English literature classes. And when you go to a Shakespeare play, you usually assume you understand most of what is being said because it sounds like English. But in fact, about 25% of the words have completely changed their meaning from the 15 and 1600s when Shakespeare wrote those plays. So we think we know what we are hearing, but we often don't. And one of the words that illustrates this best is the word individual. Individual. When Shakespeare uses the word individual, it means indivisible. It means the quality of something being unified. It has nothing to do with a person. And it was not until the 1700s, after Shakespeare was long dead, that individual came to mean what you think of when you say the word individual. Me, I, us. It's no accident that the notion of an individual emerged at the same time that all the notions of what we call rights were emerging as a result of the Renaissance and the Reformation and the printing press and a number of technological developments that transformed the societal mind. And so an individual had rights only later in the 1700s. I know we look back to 1215 and the Magna Carta, but that's really pretty silly because no one in 1215 understood what they were doing with King John was getting rights in the way we understand it. And it also, because the printing press turned text, which had been written and previously had been oral, turned text into an objective external artifact so that when you look at a book, not most of you, I saw an awful lot of laptop screens sitting in back. But we used to carry around books. And when you look at a book, you think of it as an external object. Well, intellectual property rights also did not exist until the invention of the printing press enabled text to externalize or objectify the product. Before that, it had been transmitted in so many different ways, but no one paid attention to footnotes and documentation. And the notion of an author didn't exist because an author is someone who creates a product which he or she owns. And that didn't happen until these emergent properties, again, what I call cognitive artifacts, happened as a result of technological transformations. And what the printing press did is kind of child's play compared to what the computer revolution is doing in its aggregate ways in the entire mind of society. So the individual is, in fact, what we need to know about if we're going to talk about privacy. I have to watch out. I don't want to fall off the stage. I've seen too many rock concert videos where someone just got so consumed with what they were doing that they fell off the stage. An individual has privacy. An individual has privacy because there are boundaries around the identity that an individual believes they have. And I'm trying to say that that's an emergent property and a cognitive artifact that came directly as a result of technological transformation. So that's what I want to get into. What other things are happening as a result of the computer revolution, which you may have not even noticed, immersed in it, though you may be, because once things got going, there's a kind of gee whiz wee about technology. The latest iPhone is a Hollywood presentation. The latest Internet of Things event. Look what we can do is a Hollywood presentation. We get so excited about Teslas when they're working. It's all presentation, all that stuff. And one of the things I've noticed is that IT professionals and InfoSec professionals, in the granular nature of their work day by day, are not always necessarily looking at the bigger picture and what, in fact, the implications and consequences are of the work that they do, which is transforming the world in fundamental ways which affect our freedom, our identity, and our geopolitical larger structures. So the bigger question was said to me by a dear friend at NSA not long ago. He said, the real questions are never asked here, he said. How do you live vibrantly? How do you free your mind? How, in fact, do we now live in a world without walls? Now, I don't often quote myself. Often I'm not that quotable. But I'm going to quote something I wrote about 2 decades ago for one of the intelligence agencies when I was asked to illuminate a particular aspect of what was happening to intelligence work. And this was in the early 90s. Information security, I said, is one task, both offensive and defensive, of the intelligence community, sanctions breaking foreign laws while prohibiting similar activities on American soil. But simple distinctions of foreign and domestic no longer hold. The convergence of enabling technologies of intrusion, interception, and panoptic reach, combined with a sense of urgency about the new counterterror imperative, which had replaced the war on drugs, which replaced the Cold War, which replaced World War II, and a clear mandate from our leaders to do everything possible to defeat an amorphous non-state entity defined by behaviors rather than boundaries, borders, or even a clear ideological allegiance, that has all created an ominous but invisible and seemingly inevitable set of conditions that undermine previous cornerstones of law, ethics, geopolitical structures, and even religious traditions. Therefore, I suggested IT and security professionals exercise an implicit de facto thought leadership, because you people create structures that bind and inform society and civilization. So the real implicit charge, and I make less and less distinction between InfoSec and the corporate structures or the government structures and intelligence work, because more and more the lines are so blurred between them, and I'll get to that as well. Your real de facto thought leadership is to create structures that bind and inform society and civilization. Your real charge is not to defend and protect a nation any longer, because the boundaries around the nation state have become amorphous and porous and ambiguous, just as the boundaries around individuals in networks in the face of data mining have become porous and invisible. Your charge is to stabilize the world. In other words, when intelligence people work in the trenches, first of all, you don't always know who you're working with. They may say they're from Israel, they may say they're from the Emirates, they may say they're Iranian. You know what false flag operations mean. It means you present yourself in a kind of reverse social engineering. This is who I'm presenting myself to be, and you form a contract with that. You don't always know who you're working with, but in the trenches you exchange data, and data is the currency of the modern world, and the way it transits from system to system has violated and broken down those boundaries and barriers that I talked about around geopolitical structures, around what we used to call nation states. We used to think of the oceans on either side of America as a kind of parentheses that protected us from the outlandish behaviors of the rest of the world. No more. Because once information transited those barriers, it changed our identities into something else. This has real-world consequences. It was described to me when Executive Order 12333 went out from the Bush White House, and I'm not partial against Bush. Obama turned out to be much more Bush than Bush, even, in terms of intrusion and surveillance. When Executive Order 12333 went out, and it said, in effect, this is what we're going to do now, the scene and the feel in the director's office at NSA was described as silence so thick you could cut it with a knife, because the executive order mandated that what we would now do are things which not only had we never done before, but which all of the senior people in their 50s and 60s in that room had been socialized to know and believe was things we can't do because they're illegal and unconstitutional. So what do we do? Do we not do them? No. As my paper that I wrote said, we have to do them in the trenches, and that's going to change what it is that, in fact, we are doing. And so when that executive order redirected us to gather everything, which was a political decision, because if you want to protect your country or your area or your zone of friendship against any attack, you must collect every piece of data. Every coastline must be guarded. Every bay and inlet must be protected. And that was a political decision that some people at NSA thought was foolhardy. Take some casualties, for heaven's sakes. Let a bomb go off here and there. But that would save a tremendous amount of money, but then the motivation to make that money would disappear. And the industry has grown. You know, it's a multi-billion-dollar ministry. It's like the ministry of multi-billion-dollar. What can we dream up next? And so it's not going to go away. So the dire possibility, I said, of social disintegration elevates the moral responsibility of the security and intelligence communities to a higher level. You are all linked in a cooperative activity responsible for maintaining social and global order at a level of understanding far beyond that formulated in the past by one nation. Think of the red phone between putative enemies, that if things got to the point where one of them might use their worst weapons, they pick up the phone and call. In other words, the threat of chaos breaking out in the global system is what you must protect the world against, and you are now part of the world. Again, de facto, you have implicitly been made part of that effort, even if you don't know it. Because the way we look to metadata miners is not the way we look if we live inside a 20th century frame. How many of you were born in this century? Okay. How many of you were born in the last century? Okay. Almost everybody. How many of you were born in the century before that? Okay, only 3. Hey, longevity is causing real social problems. So don't laugh at that. I was told by an insurance executive that we now use up to 120 years of age as a norm to evaluate, and he said we may have to go to 140. But more to the point, I want to paraphrase what I am saying, what I just said. Boundaries and borders define the individual and the organization, and security is a function of those boundaries, and identity is a function of clear boundaries, and privacy is a function of clear boundaries, and intellectual property rights are a function of clear boundaries, and loyalty is a function of clear boundaries. And if you were born in the last century, as most of you, all of you said you were, you still may exist or think in a framework, a 20th century framework. And the 20th century framework, I'm trying to make the point, 2 decades into this century, is inadequate to grasp the enormity of what is happening. I said from the point of view of metadata, you don't look the same. In other words, those who parse metadata, and I'll give some examples, see you at a higher level of abstraction than we often see ourselves. And the level of abstraction at which you view another entity, human or otherwise, is where you constitute their identity. That is who you think they are. But those who parse metadata and see patterns of behavior that you yourselves do not know you have, very much kind of like what Bonnie just illuminated about what the brain work does, then we can be known much better than we know ourselves. And being known better or more deeply than we know ourselves gives a leg up and more power to those who know how to do that. That is, who live in the moving target called the 21st century frame, while those who are locked into the 20th century frame are exploitable. And this is why every few days you see an article about someone who picked up the phone and they thought it was Microsoft and they sent them $45,000 to fix their computer. Life is hard, but it's a lot harder if you're stupid. And So if you want a takeaway, there you are. I should have a slide. So bottom line is the nation state, as we knew it, it's not just on its way out. It exists in a kind of quasi, now it's visible, now it's not way, because the actual sources of influence and determination of our behavior, our actual thoughts and behaviors, come from transnational entities. And we don't have a better name yet than transnational. Nation makes sense. But these emergent properties all need new names. And that's a function, according to Nietzsche, of creativity. To see first what's emerging, give it a name, and then people will think you're smart enough to have invented it. But all you did was see what was coming over the horizon. So intelligence work, not brain intelligence, is dissolving into all activities of the corporate and economic structures in which we participate. Spies used to be formally sanctioned by states. Now they're formally sanctioned by those entities that determine what it is that is important to them, and that is a result of changing technologies. Years ago, a guy named Jan Herring left the CIA, and he went to Motorola and invented a very, very elaborate, complex, and very effective intelligence network, competitive intelligence. And one of the emergent properties of the revolution was the notion of competitive intelligence as a major discipline, just as degrees and certifications in information security is an emergent property of what you have all built. Back in the day when I first spoke at DEF CON, there were 300 people when I spoke at DEF CON 4. There were, 22,000 last year? And I've watched that grow. And the only way you could learn how computer networks worked and exploit and use them was to hack them. Nobody could buy a Sun workstation. Nobody could afford to get online. Nobody had much storage. We had little floppy disks. The only way to do that was to hack, to find a way in through your school or university or wherever to get online and do it. Today you say, oh no, we can't do that. That's black hat hacking. Well, I'm pretty clear about black hat and gray hat and white hat hacking. A black hat hacker is a hacker. A gray hat hacker is a hacker who put the truth down and knows where he put it. A white hat hacker is someone who put the truth down and forgot where he put it. Okay? That's cynical. But as Jane Wagner said, I'm getting more and more cynical all the time, and I still can't keep up. Just click on the news in the morning and don't watch it before you go to sleep, you have nightmares. So, spies, now we're working for international, transnational corporate structures. And that changed the way we thought about who we were. There was an incident, again, in the early days that some of you probably don't remember, when the United States was taking action on behalf of a global structure to stabilize the global structure. And Micron, in other words, what Samsung was doing needed to be protected, and the United States acted to protect Samsung. And Micron said, wait a minute, they're a competitor of ours. If you protect Samsung, you are undermining our position in economic competition. And some people may have, if you're part of the day, older crowd, you saw that letter that Micron sent out. But nothing was done as a result of it because the only thing the government could say was, well, yeah, that's correct. In other words, the sources of power and influence had shifted to a global perspective. And it doesn't matter if trade war, no trade war. It's not about these temporary blips in what's happening. This is a single, unified structure, this world we live in. And even though nationalism may be on the rise in various ways, it's nationalism that interacts with internationalism of necessity in the same way. And in fact, you can make the case that nationalism is a reaction to the intensity of the internationalism that has become our fundamental reality, and that does challenge our identities. And when our identities are challenged, I'm an American, I'm this or that religion, then we get angry and want to go back to our 20th century frames or even our 19th century frames. What happened as a result of those changes, like the Micron change and Jan Herring going to Motorola, is the companies learned they had to act as if they were countries. They had to have their own intelligence units, and they had to partner with those who periodically were of use to them. As someone at NSA said, it was a discussion in the director's office, and the guy who's the liaison with the Brits was advocating on behalf of the Brits. He said, well, you know, they're our friends, they're a special relationship. And the deputy director of SIGINT said, excuse me, we have no friends. We have no allies. We have targets. That's all we have. Everybody is a target. And so it's periodic restructuring of alliances, kind of like 1984. Is Oceania an enemy with this one or that one, or a friend? It changes as expedient necessity dictates. So, things have changed. Testimony to that is I was speaking at a conference where the special agent in charge of the FBI office in Chicago was present, and I was making this point about the sources of our actual behaviors and influence coming from somewhere else, and he said, bingo. He said, not that long ago, I could appeal to American citizens to help us on the basis of patriotism and a shared identity. And now what I often hear is, I'd like to help you, but. And that but is the critical part, because it says, I can't, because the real reason I do what I do doesn't belong to America anymore. It belongs, for example, to Facebook, which does over 60% of its business outside of America. It belongs to Apple, which does much more than its business in the country. Outside of the country, it belongs to the Bank of America, which uses an old name to mean a bank of the world. It's not a Bank of America. So the boundaries, I'm trying to say, have gone down in meaningful ways. You can speak of the polity of a country, but you cannot describe the economics, social structures, or the entertainment media worlds which frame the mind of that society, or the cognitive artifact called the United States, or Utah, as if they can be distinguished from those of the rest of the world. Information transit all borders, and in that process makes them for all practical purposes disappear. So networks overlap, and you exercise power in a network differently than if it's explicitly designed as a hierarchy. In a hierarchy, you exercise power by dominating and controlling. But in a network, you learn you exercise power by contributing and participating. It's a different kind of power, and you can't stop a node from manifesting itself, which is the whole social media problem we're facing today. Pops up here, pops up there, distributes its information, stores its information. No, it's all right. I like a little dance break because it lets me, if we could get them all to do that in unison, it would be a most magnificent flash mob. So something very similar, yes, indeed. So what does this data that transits information tell us? Well, it can reveal subtle symptoms of mental illness, you know. Watching the transit of information can foretell movements in the Dow Jones Industrial Average. It can chart the spread of political ideas as they move through a community like a virus. In Belgium, cell phone data exposed a cultural split driving a historical political crisis. At MIT, when they tracked students using cell phones during the presidential election, they could tell when two people were talking about politics, even when they could not intercept the content, because of the duration, location, and quality of the call, the way the calls happened, the metadata, in other words. By analyzing changes in movement and communication patterns, they can detect flu symptoms before anybody knows they're getting sick. As Dr. Pentland said at MIT, phones know. People like us have this God's eye view of human behavior. After analyzing over 16 million records of cell, date, time, and position, researchers determined that people's movements follow a mathematical pattern. Enough information about past movements, you could forecast someone's future whereabouts with 94% accuracy. For us, he said, people look like little particles that move in space and reach out occasionally and communicate with each other. And you know, if you're in a 21st century frame, that a particle is not a particle. A particle is a quality of an event, which is a relationship reaching out to other events in transit during a moving pattern. And the quantum loop quantum dynamics, loop quantum gravity now portrays space-time itself as granular, quantum, and nothing but events and relationships in relationship to one another. No objects, no things. There are no things. There is only the passing transitory phase of a relationship defined as information or energy. So, the patterns allow us to learn how to better manipulate trends, opinions, and mass psychology. It's not just about observing what's happening, it's about shaping what is happening, and we're back to its dual use. You take the information you got in the first keynote and you apply it cleverly, and you can use it to undermine people's interaction with the technology as well as to enhance the effectiveness of it. And go to genetic privacy. You know, genetic privacy is practically over. More and more people are found years after they commit crimes because we track their ancestors through all sorts of elaborate DNA testing, which people, again, just like Facebook, voluntarily submit to. Oh, 23andMe? Oh, great, here's my DNA. And pretty soon you have databases that are huge and global and capable of being mined. But soon, when you walk by, I will be able to use an air sniffer, and from the dust particles that you are constantly exuding into the air, I've seen this demonstrated, we will be able to capture those and analyze your DNA. So privacy is over. Privacy was a function of boundaries that are down. And the technologies, both medical, biological, and computer and digital, that are transforming them. So we had to change the way we acted. Back in the day, in the 70s, the Pike Committee and Church Committee, after the company jewels were revealed by the CIA, said we're not going to do any assassinations. But after 9/11, as I say, everything changed. Everything changed. Cofer Black, a former head of counterterrorism at CIA, told Congress, this is classified, but there was a before 9/11 and there is an after 9/11. After 9/11, the gloves came off. And what that meant was we are now going to do target assassinations. Do you even think anything of that fact? That we do not need to justify in any way a drone strike killing not only targets, but civilians, regardless of who they are and where they are. Well, one of the talks I did at DEF CON, in fact, last month, was called The Road to Resilience, how to have strategies for surviving as you play through the pain. There's an awful lot of trauma in this industry, and you can watch that video online if you want more details. And 2 years ago, I called Playing Through the Pain, the impact of dark knowledge on security and intelligence professionals. And that's after 25 years of listening to all you men and women tell me what it can do to you sometimes to find yourself caught in a situation or a behavior or knowing about one which so twists your sense of who you are that you need to recover a sense of location in a world that makes sense again if you're paying attention and not just Mr. Robot doing the digital work. It can have some pretty profound impacts on you, and drone pilots are among those who are now suffering PTSD. You see, when you go into the bunker and you've got a 12-hour shift and you're at Nellis Air Force Base and you put on like Ender, you suddenly remember Ender's Game. You think you're playing a game and suddenly you realize there's blood on the end of your joystick. You're killing people and you're at war. And then your shift ends, you go to your kid's soccer game, you go home for dinner. That transition back and forth is causing profound traumatic stress for people. And I'm just sure that based on my experience talking at NSA, talking to people from CIA, it is not being dealt with adequately or well. I'm sorry, what? 10 minutes? No. No. I think he really just wanted to say, can we play patty cake? Okay, on to page 2. Well, I really wish I was kidding. But you get the point. You get the point. I'm pointing to that things have changed. And as Alfred North Whitehead said, the advances in civilization are processes that all direct the societies in which they occur. context into context into content. Couple of examples of that. Robert Galvin, this guy I love, brilliant guy. They asked him once, what made the big difference at Motorola for his big breakthrough ideas? This is the old Motorola, when they were building something incredible. And he thought about it, and he said the difference was made by ideas that when they were first spoken were said by one person or a couple, and nobody heard it. And they had to keep saying it. And the more they said it, people laughed. And then they attacked them. And then, as you know, everybody believed it and said, not only do we believe it, we've always believed that. But he said every breakthrough idea began as a minority of one. And he said, on the contrary, when you come into a meeting where you have to make a decision and everybody very quickly agrees that there's one thing and we need to do it, he said, in my experience, listen to him, not me, they were always wrong. They were always wrong. And if you think about the dynamics that I'm describing, you can see why. They're operating out of a framework built on their experience of the past, and the past is no longer an adequate map for the present. So when they say this is what we need to do, it's based on what we did before, and the new conditions and challenges require that we do something differently, and that's why the person who says it is out on the edges. And that's where truth moves faster and faster from the edges to the center. And there at the center, it forms the core of a new consensus reality in which people live. But part of the dislocations we're experiencing in the world is because that consensus reality is changing faster and faster. The rate of change itself is faster and faster. It's why science fiction has changed. Science fiction is how a left-brain society dreams of its future. Science fiction used to be about the future. And Bruce Sterling said to me years ago, he said, it's got to be about social realities now. It's got to be about people because nobody can see the future because it's arriving faster and faster, and we can't see it. She talked about the brain. I'm just going to say the brain is your friend as well as your enemy. It does all kinds of things you don't like, making you do things, but it can help. The executive function, prefrontal cortex, is the part that can tell the rest of the brain what it is you intend to do, and this is critical for what you're going to do going forward, so that the rest of your brain can cooperate. For example, people who have gone blind and had to learn Braille had the intention of, I'm going to learn Braille, and their brain generated more and more sensitive fingertips and connections and neurons to their fingertips. Their brain linked to their fingertips much more, so that they became much more sensitive and took over some of the optic nerve portion of the brain, because that's what they intended to do. Ted Glaser at MIT, he was blind. He'd come into a cocktail party and listen to all the conversations at once. He played what, boy, I bet a lot of you don't know what these are. We used to have these little tapes called cassettes, and he would play a cassette at 6 times speed because he had trained his brain because he needed to listen to it at that speed. Your brain is your friend, and Robert Galvin not only pointed out that you have to build in an openness to heresy. Remember what George Bernard Shaw said, all great truths begin as blasphemies. Galvin also put into practice what he preached. So, for example, when he wanted people at Motorola to pay attention to total quality, and nobody was, because when he attended meetings, they wanted to show him what hotshots they were, and total quality was way down on the list. What he told them to do was do total quality, but people weren't, because the implicit message wasn't strong enough. So what he did was attend their meetings, and as soon as the total quality presentation was made, he got up and left. And pretty soon the word buzzed through the conversation that directs the leadership of the company. The only thing he cares about is total quality. And pretty soon everybody was putting total quality into their presentations. In other words, they changed the context of the company, and then the content followed. All these changes are causing for a lot of people rigidity and fear and isolation. And those things always go together. Rigidity, fear, and isolation. The only things that overcome those, and they also happen to be the only things that create real security in an organizational structure, are mutuality, that is teamwork, doing things together, working, studying, doing things together. Mutuality and feedback, because as you know, the more complex the system gets, the more feedback loops you need inside the system, and to outside the system to other systems. And the more complex it gets, that's where nation states came from in the first place, as the speed of the flow of information into and out of growing complex systems required more manageably large entities in order to govern the space that the information filled. Mutuality, feedback, and above all, accountability. So the accountability is to your, as a person, mutually agreed upon vision or goals that you want. And in a company, what it is we're really doing here. But it starts where I said, with paying attention to the cognitive artifacts, the people in your brain that weren't there before, and allowing yourself to see what immense changes have taken place. And then as a result, restructuring how you think about it, and you can't do it alone because you'll skew off. And that's why you need that mutuality. You need that dialogue. And it's no accident that when all this began, cross-disciplinary learning and teamwork became very, very important at a new level and in a new way, because networks reformed us. We invented them, then they invented us to work as nodes in a network and behave differently. I did talks 25 years ago for teachers who want to know, what is this cyberspace thing and what's it going to mean to education? And at a Northern Illinois school district, they said, we get good grades from Motorola and Abbott and the places we feed our students to, except for cooperative work teams. We don't do very good in teaching them that. And I said, well, what do you mean by cooperative learning? And they described it to me, and I said, you know, when I was in school, we called it cheating. We called that cheating. I was told, and this is literally true, don't look at Bruce Rockwell's paper in physics by Bucky Wagner. We called him Bucky because of his teeth. And that was behind his back, of course, because he gave the grades. But I was told, do your own work. But then Marvin Minsky pointed out that a person who does only their own work without knowing how to give and receive information in cooperative structures is like a computer on a table that's not plugged into the network. He's a brain, or she's a brain in a bottle. So the network is where human beings are thinking, he pointed out 25 years ago. And the thinking means that's the place where you can have contradictory and not very congruent points of view, 3, 4, 5. Hold them all likely simultaneously while you decide on the basis of your filter for reality what is the most important template or map of reality to apply to what's happening now. And that's not trivial. So, 2 minutes? Well, you had 5 up. Huh? We're negotiating. It's just like Kavanaugh, right? This process can make us feel kind of crazy. I understand that I've laid a lot on you, but what I want you to do is think about it in relationship to your lives and your work. I have an exercise I do, which if anybody wants it, I've got cards. My email address is on my website. I'll be glad to share it with you, which helps you understand what your clearest intention is now. If you want that simple one-page exercise, I'll send it to you. It's been very, very important to me. It sounds simple and simplistic even. I mean, one of the categories is things I want to say that I don't want to say. And 25 years ago, I found myself writing the words thank you and goodbye to parish ministry. I thought, well, what do I do with that? Well, I had to put it away. I had responsibilities to fulfill, but sooner or later it was showing up all over the exercise. The point being that once I knew what I really wanted to do was not suffocate to death in that case, a religious environment which was not really interested in new technologies, where I was, I had to get out of that context in order to be challenged by the world as it was happening. I found that out there, and that's why I could take the high road out. Because now that I know what it is I want to do, I can devise a strategy that enables me to leave a work that I love doing for 16 years and go into another work which is now what's right for now, which has been for the last 25 years nothing but speaking and writing. The other thing about speaking and writing as a profession, I just share this with you confidentially, is it's a good thing to do if you have no skills whatsoever. And so you're everything, but you're just so grateful that nobody has noticed that. Okay. So, I said there was no privacy. The weakest link in the security chain is the same as the weakest link in the privacy chain. It's the definition of the problem. And we need to redefine what it is we think we're talking about in security as well as privacy. Security is it's really the same kind of things we've been working with at lower levels of abstraction for many years. You know, in the 1600s in France, it was so dark at night. You know, they couldn't see anything. So criminals came out at night and they ployed their trade. And so it was mandated now by a law that you had to carry a lamp if you went out at night. And the point wasn't so you could see where you were going. The point was so people could see and identify you. No different than the World Wide Web, as we used to call it, right? The whole point of attribution is you have to carry a lantern so we can identify you. Oh, you're not carrying a lantern? Then we're going to devise all sorts of things we can do to see you and know you better than you know yourself. Well, as I say, this work can get pretty dicey. Robert Morris Sr. was one of the greats of our profession, and he was the chief scientist at NSA. And yet, on the human level, that's what I'm trying to talk to here, on the human level, when he sobbed, I held him in my arms while he sobbed, because 11 people had died on a mission for which he had done the background technological work. And all he kept saying was there something I could have done that I didn't do? A question that always plagues everybody after the breach. Was there something I could have done that I couldn't do? And you know the rubric, you either have been breached or you will be. It's a question of how interested in someone is in breaching you. It can get to you, this work. And sometimes dealing with the realities of the world, CIA scientist told me he developed an extremely effective method of getting rid of the coca crop in Peru. And to make it short, every time he brought back his program to do it, he was stopped by the executive branch of the government and told, don't do it, and for this reason, that reason. He countered all their reasons. Finally, they said, just forget it. The program is over. He said, why? They said, because so many people are making money from cocaine, especially in the executive branch of the government, from whom you're asking permission, that they're not going to interfere with their cash flow. And he said, well, great. Let's expose them. Let's do a whistleblower. And they said, you don't get it, do you? You will become dead if you don't shut up. Now, he left CIA after 17 years. Told me it took him 10 years to reconstitute his sense of self and his sense of purpose because he felt helpless and powerless in the face of these chthonic dark powers of the world that permeate systems. And it's easier to just shut those out and pay no attention. But sometimes you have to become conscious of it and go up against it. And he had to develop a way to re-grasp himself when his soul or self had been shattered by the event that I just described. And I have permission to share that event. Well, in a lesser way, that's just a normal day at work, right? You have to do things that you violate your ethics to do, and you don't want to do them, but, well, we can get by this. But sooner or later, if you do that long enough, according to my friends in the intelligence business, either sooner or later you build calluses and calluses and calluses. Sooner or later you either whistleblow or you leave. Friend at CIA said, no, you don't have to leave. You just have to go to the trough and get one more ladle of patriotism. And then buck up your sense that you are a good guy doing good guy things on behalf of the good guys. And then you're good to go for a while. Well, these are serious. No fingers? Okay, concluding sentence. These are the serious things that can confront us in this vale of tears and in this industry. I just suggest don't stop looking. Don't stop being mindful and vigilant. Being mindful and vigilant. Be as aware as you can of you and your context and your relationships to that context around you, but be vigilant. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thanks, dude.
You got it now? All right, our next group we're very excited about as well. This is Neverland CTF. And as a few of you already know, these guys, they came to SAINTCON 4 years ago, I believe, and got their start as some high school kids just having fun and stepping out of their their comfort zone is what we ask you to do here, and that's exactly what they've done. And with it, they've been able to carry on and create a international capture the flag tournament that they run. I'll let them, I won't steal all their thunder on that because I think that's just amazing. And they're here, and they're awesome, and we're excited to have them. And here we go, guys, Neverland CTF, come on up. There's one right here. So.
Yep.
All right. So if you're gonna use that mic, we'll have you stand to the side.
That's fine.
And then you can in the middle.
All right. Is that gonna?
We on? Can you all hear me?
Only
Perfect.
the slides are up though. Sweet.
You're not on mirror. Yeah.
Oh, that's not what I want.
Let me see.
There we go.
No, watch.
How many tech people does it take to mirror a screen?
Come on.
So this picture was taken from my trip to Costa Rica.
Open preferences. What are you doing? There it is. Why can't I see this? Perfect.
Oh, sweet.
I can't read it from here. Yeah, I know. I need this.
What's that?
I can't even see my mouse pointer. Can you guide me? Perfect. Where am I at?
Apples, man.
Hey, let's go. We got it. All right.
Oh, there we go. Keep going. There we go.
Finally, we made it.
I think that's the right one.
Thanks for having us. My name's Tanner Purvis, and we are here to talk to you today about Teach Them to Hack. I've been a part of this organization since its foundation, really, along with my two friends up here, Preston Pace and Zane Durkin. So we'd like to start off today with a little bit of background information about ourselves, and then move into what we do as an organization, about some things about our event, how it's gone in the past, and then finish off with some things that we'd like to see for the future. So to get things started off, who are we? Well, we consist of the mentor. His name's Dan Daggett, otherwise known as SG Viking. He's really been the driving force behind our whole operation, and he's the one who makes this entire thing happen. Without him, we wouldn't be where we are today. So unfortunately, he thought that it would be more important to stay in Australia than to come and watch us here, which is why he's upside down up there. But we love you, Dan, so I hope you're watching from home. And then also we've got the team, which consists of myself, Pravesta, Preston, or Zesty, and Zane, who's otherwise known as Zane. And finally, you've got the soul of the operation, which is Jake, otherwise known as State Farm. It's an awesome picture of him rocking DEF CON's main stage as a DJ. And he's just been our whole inspiration. He's the one who keeps us, driving to do the best that we possibly can. And he's been a great addition to the team and always pushes us to do our best. And collectively, we form the Neverland CTF. We've been doing this for 3 years now, going on our 4th year in February, and it's just been an awesome ride so far, and we'd like to tell you a little bit more about that. So first things first, not everybody in the room may be familiar what a CTF is in relation to computer science, cybersecurity. So CTF stands for Capture the Flag. In the case of our event, the flag is a string of text hidden on a server or an answer to a riddle or a question. This right here is an example of what a flag might look like. Also, it looks really similar to something that you might see in the SAINTCON Hackers Challenge. So there's a hint there if you might want to try that one out. And the goal of a CTF is to find and capture all these flags for your team and do it in the shortest amount of time, do it the fastest. Each flag ends up being worth points that contributes towards your team's total score. And then at the end of the game, the team that has the highest score wins. That's pretty much it.
So we want to give you guys kind of an example of like what it feels like to be in a CTF. So we'll start you off like we do our students with a trivia challenge. We like to get the students involved in a little bit like what is the topic, and then they can take that knowledge and bring it into the events or the other challenges later on, and they can build off what they just learned. So on this challenge, we're given a statement, a reliable mechanism for websites to remember stateful information. Very cut and dry, and then yummy with an exclamation point. So that's kind of just a weird thing on the end there. But let's keep note of that. How many can I skip? Okay. So one thing we do for our students is we like to promote them to use their resources, anything that they have available to them. And that includes the internet. If they don't realize what a topic is, they've never heard of it, go search it online, ask a friend, ask a mentor, or just look it up on the internet if you can. We really, you have these resources available to you, use them, but know how to use them and know how to go and find information on your own so you can better yourself, even if nobody else is there to help you. So we took that statement, we plugged it into Google, and you can see, in the internet, you can see that even the first result is a Wikipedia result on an HTTP cookie. So if we read into that, you can even see that the exact words that were used in the question are put into that description of the website. And cookies, they're pretty yummy, so that yummy kind of matches up, and it kind of lets us know we're on the right track here. So if we read into about the cookie, we can learn that it's a piece of string that's stored on your browser, that when you visit a website, they save it there so they can remember who you are. So normally when you visit a website, you're just somebody new coming to the website. But with the cookie, you can actually set a session information, so you can say like, hey, I'm that same guy that logged in 20 minutes ago. I'm here to check out with my shopping cart full of items, or I'm here to check my Facebook status or whatever. So it allows us to have that state where you can just go to a website and you're already logged in, it knows who you are and it knows what information you want. So they're really helpful. And also, if you read into it a bit more, they're even editable. You can change these cookies, and that's kind of fun to play around with if you realize just how much websites really use these cookies. And so we can take this information we've learned, now we know what a cookie is, we know that it can be edited, we know that it provides state to a website, and that websites will change a little bit based on what we change it to. So let's take that information and let's put it in another challenge. So here's another example challenge that you can, we're given a link to it, and on the website it just shows my favorite red guy. So not a whole lot of information to go off of on here, but the title, if you see in the little tab, it says cookie_monster. So cookie, we just learned what a cookie was, but Cookie Monster, that kind of reminds you of a character from an old TV show back when you were a kid, Sesame Street. Some of you may remember it. You had a Cookie Monster that loved cookies. My favorite red guy, that might bring a certain character to your mind as well. So let's go ahead and take a little bit deeper look at this website. Let's bring up the dev tools or the developer tools. Every browser has developer tools, at least most of them do, and you can view a lot more about the website with this. You can see the source code, you can see what network requests are going on in the background. You can see all kinds of information, including cookies. So in this, we brought up the dev tools. We see that there is a cookie set. The name of it's red guy's name, and the value's name goes here. So that seems like we probably need to put the name of the red guy in as the value of this cookie. So the red guy that at least comes to my mind is Elmo from Sesame Street, the red guy, the main character really. So we're going to go and put his name in as the value of the cookie. And then in order for the website to react to this information, we need to reload the page. So it resubmits that cookie to the page so it can react to it. And it looks like that was right. So we got a flag here. It was given to us, and we can go take that, put it in as our team, and get points for our team. And that's really what a CTF is like. It's solving these challenges and getting the hurrah, I found it, and it did something and it gave me a flag back. So that's kind of the joy of this. But what did we learn here? You may not have really realized that you were learning a lot here. Well, we learned that HTTP cookies are a thing. Some of you may not have known that. Some of you may have known that forever. But it's something new that a lot of people don't really realize what they are, what they're there or used for. And we learned that they give a state to what is an otherwise stateless protocol. So that means if the cookies weren't there, we would never know who's loading up Facebook pages, and we'd have to log in every time we visited the page. And that's just kind of a nuisance after a while. So we also learned that you can view and edit these cookies in your browser. So just because they're set there by a server doesn't mean that you don't have control over them. You can change these, you can make them whatever you want. And websites will change based on the information of these cookies. So if you were to change a cookie to something that the website didn't understand, it might just throw an error, or it might just, it's untold what really could happen. So why do we do it?
Yeah, so a little bit of background on, why are we doing this type of thing? Why are we making challenges and pushing CTFs? Cybersecurity has been extremely underrepresented in the school system, and we really want to change that. You'll notice over here in the graphic it says 2 million was the estimated global shortage of cybersecurity professionals by 2019. And also another number to note here is it says 77% of women said that no high school teacher or guidance counselor even mentioned cybersecurity as a career path. So this kind of gives us an idea that there's a lot of jobs out there available for this, and not only that, but not a lot of students are even hearing about this as a career opportunity. So we can take this information and realize that it's not getting represented how it should be in the school system. Students should be learning about this sooner, and really get the word out there that this is a career path that's possible, and it's something that you should try out and see if you're interested in. And also at the bottom, in relation to Utah, there's a number here at the time these stats were grabbed. It says 2,351 were the current unfulfilled cybersecurity positions in Utah alone. So that's just Utah. There's a lot of unfilled positions out there, and this field really needs to be introduced into the school system as a legitimate career path. Also, SAINTCON should be having wristbands that you can go out and grab, like I'm looking for a job, or I'm hiring, or whatever. So that would be a cool thing to check out if you're interested in that. But also the younger generation is the future. Like, these are the people that are going to be taking over security when we get old, and these are the people that are going to be making sure that the technology we use in the future is safe and secure. But also, we want to teach others so that they can teach the younger generation. We can't do this thing alone. Our mission was to teach everyone to hack. We want to teach the younger generation to hack, but we want to also teach everyone to hack, and we want to teach others to teach, because we are few and they are many. So that's another one of our main reasons why we do this is we want to really spread the word about this and really get people learning how to hack. There is also this other important part to it, though, is we want to build some positive relationships with the youth so that when we do get old and we're not sure how technology works anymore, that they don't hack us and steal all our money and stuff. It's seriously that's another main point there. But a little bit more background on where did Neverland begin? Where did we start from? We began as an after-school hacker group just working on projects. We all had, common interests. The students at the school that were in this hacker group, we all had common interests, and we had a ton of free time. And we kept thinking to ourselves, what do we got to do? What are we going to do with our free time? We want to build cool stuff. We should stay after school or something. And so we decided to stay after school, decide on some cool projects to work on, get our awesome teacher to fund it and give us some free stuff to work on. And if you'll notice in this picture here, we're all looking at some LED strips in this room. This room is actually our hackerspace that we built. And we got the idea of building a hackerspace at our first year at SAINTCON. We heard an awesome talk about building a hackerspace and what it's like, and we thought to ourselves, that would be awesome. We want to do that thing. And so we came back, immediately started working on the hackerspace, painted it ourselves. We got some awesome tools in there, so that this picture really showcases, this was like a snapshot of our day. It was like every day after school. We'd hang out, we'd decide on some cool project to work on, and we just did it because we thought it was fun. yes, we were learning something, but also it was just awesome for us. So I'm going to let Preston explain a little bit more in detail on some of the projects that we actually did get to work on. So Preston, take it away.
All right. I don't know how close I need to be. So going back to that image, you can see we're in our hackerspace. You know, it's newly built. We got all our tools and stuff, and at this point, we're gathered around a table, looking at a bunch of LEDs. We're just trying to figure out like what kind of projects can we really kick off the hackerspace with. So we're just tossing around ideas, and our teacher comes in and throws a ton of LEDs at us, says do something with it. And so what you're looking at is one of our projects. It's the LED array in its infancy, and so this is it in its final state, I guess. And so we decided we wanted to build an LED array, and how we did that was we just took a bunch of LEDs. We learned how to solder them together on fade candy boards, connected to a Raspberry Pi, and we mapped out LEDs in specific points and learned a new programming language we had never seen before. We did it all in processing, and this was kind of our introduction to hardware hacking. You know, actually getting physical contact with these brand new items, these toys. Really, we were just testing it. Broke a lot of LEDs. I think this is like the biggest we could make it because we burned through a ton of LEDs. They're really expensive, but we were able to finally get the hang of it, and really ended off with a cool project. We were able to use this as a scoreboard for CTFs we played, like the HS CTF and the Social Geek CTF. We were able to play. We used this for we played games on it a lot, you know, Pong and Snake, and we built all this ourselves, which is really the cool part is that we had this opportunity to start building stuff just from scratch. And like I said, this is our introduction to hardware hacking, and so this really led into the next project that we made, which was a robot, which is really Zane's baby, so I'll go ahead and let him talk about it.
All right. Well, so this robot you can see, we had this hackerspace, and we were in there occasionally, and we wanted like maybe a little pet to drive around, and if we got it really advanced, maybe even bring us sodas or something really cool. Just big ideas coming out, and so we built this robot with the idea that it could be autonomous, it could drive itself around, and it would be this cool little thing we could talk to, and just have like a little pet in the hackerspace. So we started off with some mechanism wheels, which are the wheels you can see on there. They allow it to move side to side as well as front to back, so it's kind of like some forklifts you may know of, where the wheels twist and it like pulls sideways. But we also had to figure out how to wire these things up and how to get it to move in general. So you can see there's a lot of random wires there, because we were high schoolers, we didn't really know how to wire things correctly. So, but we had a couple Arduinos there, we had a Raspberry Pi, and we wired these stepper motors up to an Arduino that could handle each motor independently. And we could get it to move around, and it could even pick up its own, like where it wanted to go. It would say like, I want to move right now, and I want to move left, and I want to spin. It didn't really know what it was doing. It was just or where it was at. It just kind of moved, and that was the coolest thing about it, is we built something that could move and it could travel itself, and it was kind of its own thing. We didn't really go too much farther with it because we liked it how it was, but we kind of got busy with other projects too. So this is one of those things that we got it to a point that we liked it, and it was kind of cool, and it just kind of sat there and became something that we'd done, and we could build off of the information we learned later on. So again, another hardware hacking thing, we just started plugging things together and getting it to work. I actually ended up burning up one of the red boards you see on there, which is apparently really hard to get back of. So, but yeah. And then next we had a keyless entry. We don't have a picture of this one, but for our hackerspace, we wanted to be able to come in and out as students that were a member or part of the group, because there was a lot of expensive equipment in there, and we didn't want just any student walking in and messing with the equipment that didn't know what they were doing or how to use it. So we built this keyless entry system that used RFID cards. So on our student IDs, we had RIDs printed just like everybody else, but on our badges, they had an RFID card built in. So when we walked up to the door, we could scan our card, and the door would open for us. And it wasn't just like we could walk in whenever. The keyless entry system also had a logging system built into it. So our teacher could see when we're coming in and when we're leaving, and he could even lock the door at certain times. So if he didn't want us coming in after 9 o'clock because we should go home and sleep at some point, he could do that, and he could lock off the door, and we wouldn't be able to get in, which is good, especially in the high school. So We even built in some security to it. It wasn't just a free thing for us to get in the room, but it also it limited the authority to the people that knew what they were doing in there and had the training to use the equipment. And it was nice as a learning project. Next, we have the MAME cabinet. The high school has actually done a lot more work on this since we joined, so this is actually the version 2 of it, and it's really nice looking here. I like it a lot. But we built this cabinet originally as just a place to kind of relax. So when we're working in the hackerspace, we have all these projects, and sometimes you get stuck on a project and you get a little frustrated, and you just need to go cool off and play some games and calm your mind. So this really gave us the opportunity to build something that we could then relax as playing on it. So we hooked it up with an old computer that we had, and they since switched over to Raspberry Pi. But basically, we could just play arcade games on it. We could go in there and we could verse each other with the 4 different controllers, or we could just play a game by ourselves. But it really helped us cool down, and it was something that we could play on that we'd built ourselves as well. And it was kind of the cool thing that the thing we were building, we could interact with, and we could use it, and it was helpful in our everyday lives if we needed something. So it was really nice to have something that we had built that we could interact with and use. And finally, the library software. I'll let Tanner talk about this one because he worked a lot more on this one.
Library software, another thing we don't have a picture of here, as Zane was mentioning, when we were building these projects, and it's something that we could see, we got to do hands-on and something we could see how it affected other people besides ourselves. The library software was another great example of that. The library software at our school is a system that works somewhat like this, where you walk into the library, you sign in with your ID, and it logs when you come into the library, and when you exit, you sign out. It also lets you check out books and check them back in. So it's basically a logging system that keeps track of books checked out as well as people coming in and out of the library. But what our main focus was as far as working on the software was to improve it. We wanted to make it faster, we wanted to make it better, and so we actually got the opportunity to update some of the SQL statements. So SQL is a database schema language. We got to make those more efficient and make the system more efficient altogether, all while learning a new programming language, PHP, that we hadn't really worked with before as well. And this was just another great example of a project where we got to see how it was affecting other people. Not just ourselves within the group, but even the entire school was using it. We got to see how it made their lives better, and even some business skills, because it ended up getting sold out to other schools in the area as well. So just another awesome project that we got to work on, and a great experience to see what it was like to work on something that other people were going to use. We got to do all these things with an awesome teacher that he allowed us to participate in CTFs much like the one that we run today. And on top of CTFs, he also let us go to conferences. So the picture on the left that you see up there is a picture of us in front of the Google developers in Mountain View, California at their headquarters. This was the GDG North America Summit, which is Google Developer Group's North America Summit, where we got to go up and speak in front of all of these developers about the hackerspace we were building. I believe we were like 14 or 15 years old at the time, so it was just a crazy experience to be able to go up and stand in front of them, and they were interested in what we had to talk about and thought it was awesome that we were building our own hackerspace in southern Idaho. So it was really a great experience to go down there and the interest that they showed and what we were talking about, it was awesome. And also the picture on the right there, that was a few years ago at SAINTCON. We just gotten our badges, having an awesome time, super excited for the conference ahead, and somehow we managed to get every single person in the same picture without us moving, so that was an accomplishment in its own right. But these conferences have been a great opportunity for us, especially going through high school and when we got to go to them. We learned so much, and it was actually SAINTCON where we began as the Neverland CTF. We got the idea to run our own CTF. SAINTCON was the first place where we got a real taste of what a hacker's challenge, a true hacker's challenge was, a true CTF was. And SAINTCON were the ones that inspired us to make our own. The community is fantastic here, and seriously, you guys should give yourself a round of applause because you are all awesome here. SAINTCON is fantastic. Yes, please. everyone at SAINTCON, when we came, we're kids, and at the time we were in high school, and everyone was so helpful to us. We were asking a ton of questions, and instead of getting annoyed at how many questions we were asking, everybody wanted us to sit down with us and have us learn. And that was great about SAINTCON. Like, we really loved that about SAINTCON, and thought that, if we had this opportunity even younger than when we were in high school, or other people had this opportunity that they're not experiencing like we are, we want them to have that ability to experience that. And so we want to make our own Capture the Flag that could embody that and give them this kind of experience, this learning experience that we had. And so a CTF was born. There's also a task that involves our high school, some rings that we had to jump through that I'll let Preston explain.
So going back a step, as Neverland, we had a goal in mind of developing a really cool way to be able to teach these younger kids computer science and cybersecurity. We wanted to be able to introduce it to them at a younger age, because we had amazing opportunities going through our high school that we wish other people could have had. We regret, at least I do, regret having not started earlier. I can't even imagine the feats that we could have achieved if we had started earlier or sooner. But we wanted to kind of fix that. We wanted to show that this is a real thing, a real problem, is the underrepresentation of cybersecurity, and we wanted to kind of build a solution to it. And so the Neverland CTF is what we did, but first we had to go through our senior project is what it was. We were seniors at the time of the very first Neverland CTF, and so we had to show, we'd start off small. We had to show our high school that this is a real thing, and that this is a possible solution to the underrepresentation of cybersecurity in the younger people. And so we had to go through a couple of guidelines to really show that this is something that we can do. And so the first one is it had to be career oriented. And so when making this is one of the first group senior projects that was allowed to go through our high school. And so all of us were involved in it. We wanted to show that we could do it separately, but still come together and make it one massive thing. And so had to be career oriented to the career of our choice. And so I decided I wanted to do the front end development of it. So I wanted to make the website look professional and not like a bunch of high schoolers made it. A nice logo. I didn't make the logo, but wanted to make it look nice and professional. And so that was the career choice that I'd chosen to take part of. And so that's kind of where I led, and Zane and Tanner really took the brunt of the challenges and the infrastructure of the CTF, which is something that they really wanted to do in their careers. And so that's kind of where they went off. That's where we all split off, I guess. The second guideline is it had to teach you something, not only in your career, but as a person, it had to make you better. And so the CTF made us better in the fact that none of us knew how to teach anybody anything. And we were high schoolers. And so we had to go smaller, we had to go younger. So we went to our local middle school, which kind of ties in the fact with the third one, is it had to engage the community. So we went to our local middle school. We asked them, can we put this on? Can we do this for just a computer class if you guys have one? And they said, yeah, they loved the idea. And so we went in, we set a date, and we put on our Neverland CTF forum for our first time. And we were engaged with our community, our local middle school. We were there, we were learning how to mentor kids on how to learn cybersecurity, how to start from nothing, because that's what we assume is no experience whatsoever, and we teach them to do like SQL injections and really how to do that yourself. And because the CTF is awesome, it fit all three of them, and so we passed with flying colors. We all graduated. And we were one of the first senior projects, like I said, one of the first group ones. And so I guess after, like I said, with the career-oriented, the first place we had to start was the infrastructure, which is really where Zane and our mentor Dan came in. So I'll let Zane just I guess, talk about our infrastructure.
All right. So one of the things we get asked as an organization, or at least the general area, is how do we build an event like this? Like, where do we start when building a CTF or a community event or just anything that's like an event that other people can play online or anything like this? Well, we love these questions because as high schoolers, when we were starting out, we didn't have a clue how to do it either. We didn't know where to start, what to build off of, really anything about it. And if it wasn't for our mentor, Dan, we might not have even had an infrastructure for our first event, and the event might not even have happened. So it's a big thanks to him that we have this infrastructure that we do. And it survived the length of our event growing, and so I'd like to kind of present it to you guys so you guys can use this infrastructure, or at least a similar setup, if you ever decide to build your own CTF or own event. So we'll kind of walk you through a little bit about it. Here are the services we use, just kind of a quick overview of them. So the CTFD is the actual CTF software we use, so it handles the teams, the admins, the scores, the scoreboard, really just most of what people see when playing a CTF. So we use the software because it's really quick to set up. It's got a hosting service. If you guys don't want to set up your own infrastructure, it has a hosting availability. So if you go to their website, you can buy hosting. But there's many other CTF softwares out there as well. There's like the Pico CTF software, there's an Easy CTF, there's a Facebook CTF, there's many more with a quick Google search. But we just chose this one because it was pretty slimmed down, it was minimal really, and it worked for what we needed our event to do. We also have DigitalOcean up there because we use DigitalOcean for hosting our main websites, our .com and our .org addresses. We do this because as an organization, we want to have a public-facing website that's up year-round. We don't use DigitalOcean for our actual event because it's not quite as scalable as Amazon, so we use it just for our main websites to save a little bit of money. We do use Amazon for our challenges, like I said. We use it for hosting the CTFD software and also for hosting our challenges, which are normally web-based, so they each have their own individual server. We also use GitHub and Docker in our challenges, so we Dockerize all of our challenges that need their own infrastructure or their own server, and we post them on our GitHub. So after our event's over and we've used these challenges, we want to give back to the community and let you guys use our challenges as well for if you build your own CTF event. So they're out there. Check out our GitHub if you want some more, and I'll get onto that a little bit more. So here's a quick overview of our infrastructure. We have DigitalOcean at the top for our main websites. We split it off at the DNS level, so we have our CTF.Neverland going to its own Amazon cloud, which has an elastic load balancer, so just one server with an IP address that can forward requests to servers below it. So the servers below it are the EC2 instances. They're just servers that run a bunch of Docker containers. So like I said, our challenges are built in Docker, so each challenge gets its own, oh sorry, this is the CTF platform. The CTF platform just runs on one EC2 server, and I have two up there, but you can do that if you want. We just use one, and then we scale that EC2 service so the server's bigger or smaller as needed. We use the load balancer because we want to keep a static IP address if we change the server, so we don't have to change the DNS a bunch. So if you're wanting to set up a CTF platform, we recommend it this way, but there's many different ways to set up an infrastructure. Our challenges cloud, we have set up in a very similar manner. We have one elastic load balancer that handles the IP address, and we forward all the requests down to different servers depending on how many people we have visiting the website. If there's a lot of people coming, we have a bunch of load on that server, we can throw up another EC2 server and spread the load across it. Or if a server gets crashed and somebody manages to take it down or gets out of the challenge, that's kind of why we have the different clouds, so nobody can get to our scoreboard from the challenges because they're trying to hack the challenges. But so if somebody takes down a challenge or takes down the whole server even, we can just throw it down, get a new one up and running, and load balance across the other ones that are still working. So nobody really sees the difference in the servers. So, and we actually have had that problem once our first year where somebody managed to get out of a SQL server and took down a server. So it is useful to have this kind of a setup where you can scale things. And if you don't need all these servers, you can scale them down to just one to help save some money. So it's useful in that route too. As the challenges, we do use Docker. Docker's nice because it gives basically a little virtual server for each individual challenge. So you don't have to set up Nginx and Apache and HAProxy or whatever all on the same server. You can have an individual virtual server for each challenge. And it helps for throwing up elsewhere too. So if you guys want to use our challenges, they have their own Docker container, and you can throw up on your own local device without having to worry about how the environment's set up. It's all built into the Docker file. And again, check out our GitHub if you guys need ideas for CTF challenges. And finally, the challenges themselves. We found when we were building challenges that's actually one of the most critical points of a CTF. You really need to know your audience when building challenges, because if you make them too hard, people, at least the students that we teach, will sometimes get frustrated and they'll kind of feel like they aren't learning something, or it's something that's way above them and they can't do it, so they just kind of stop. But if it's too easy, they don't really learn anything, and they get kind of bored, they just skim through it, and it's not really that much fun. So you want to find that happy medium between making too hard of challenges and making too easy of ones. We found it was nice to have kind of a progressive disclosure. So we have, which is where we give them a little bit of information, and then we give them a little bit more and a little bit more. We don't just give it to them all at once. So we have our trivia challenges like we experienced before. We have a trivia where we go and learn something about a topic, just a little bit to touch on it. And then we could take that information and apply it to the next challenge. And then we learn a little bit more by actually using it. And then with that knowledge that we learned from that new challenge, we can bring it to the next one and to the next one. And then we really get that ingrained in us, and we really understand what we're doing and what we're learning about. So it's nice to have that in challenges as well. And if you ever make a challenge too hard, you can always add hints, or you can just go and mentor the students like we like to do and step them through it and help them get past the point that they're stuck at, but still let them struggle a little bit to learn. And finally, our first year. So how did our first year go?
So a little bit about how the first year went. By the way, as far as timeline goes, if you all are confused, I don't know if I mentioned this before, I've been doing this for 3 years. So the first out of our 3 years that we've done this, we ran the CTF online so that anyone could participate. We had no age limit, so that it didn't matter that we were aiming our challenge difficulty at middle school level. We just wanted to make sure that everybody could have fun, and so we did that. Everybody can play. But also with our CTF, we wanted to make it so that middle school level kids were allowed to win prizes, middle school level or below. We just thought this, incentivizes them to play the game, and also prizes are awesome. So, who doesn't like to win something? And as they mentioned before, the event was ran in person at a local middle school, and I have mentorship for the win there, because mentorship is seriously what we found the most successful part of our event, really. I mean, being in person and being able to mentor kids through the challenges has been one of the greatest components in what has made our event so successful. I think we've all gotten stuck on a CTF challenge before where you're sitting there and you're just like, I don't know where to go from here, or you don't even know where to start. And so that is where this comes in really handy, is kids can get stuck too in that same way, and they feel the same way, and at that point in time they can just feel free to raise their hand, and we'll walk over and help them through the challenge. Like Zane said, we make them struggle a little bit, but just we want them to get through the challenge and understand what's going on, and not get stuck and get frustrated. Also, there's free stickers too, so I mean, if you really do get bored with the whole thing, who doesn't like free stickers? So some results about the first year. We had 44 actively competing teams and a ton of fun. We heard from the teachers that this was an awesome event and they wanted us to come back and do it again. And at that point in time, we thought to ourselves, let's do it again. Let's make this an annual thing. And so we did. Its growth since has been an awesome journey, to say the least. So as we mentioned, first year, 44 teams signed up with 44 actively competing. In the second year, we wanted to really increase that, so we made a bet with our mentor, Dan, that if we hit over 200 teams, he had to get a tattoo of the Neverland CTF. We got 244, so you could see how that went for Dan. So he loves pirates, so he decided to get a pirate with a chest and our logo in the middle, which is super awesome. And we decided to keep that same attitude rolling. So with the third year, Jake mentioned that if we hit 400 teams, so that's doubling, it's asking a lot. I mean, if we hit 400 teams, he had to get a tattoo as well. This is how it went down, basically. Dan said, if we get 400 teams, I'll LOL, this is the beginning. And then we had 392 teams, so the Slack channel started to blow up a little bit. Zane warmed up the tattoo gun. I started drawing up designs, like, we're ready. And then the realization started to set in for Jake. It was like, oh, no, we're definitely going to get over 400 here. And then we put a tweet out where we had 502 teams registered at this point in time. Still waiting on that tattoo, though, Jake. So you got a long ways to go to the door, and there's a lot of people. But when it all was said and done, we had 1,250 teams signed up, with about 1,000 of those teams actively participating in the event, which is just exponential growth. It was amazing. Like, nobody thought that we would ever hit that point, so it was really great to see that. And there was that part about us going international too. We also had, at one point in time, 82 different countries that were competing. No, they weren't all VPNs. We actually did send out some prizes to different countries, which was great. So, the growth has been awesome, and it just shows the real importance and like what people think about what we're doing. Cybersecurity and teaching the younger generation to hack is important. But we've also brought on some more people to help out. I mentioned Jake. We brought him on to help us out. He was able to, be the force behind making this thing what it is today. He was the one who pushes us to do our best. Bash Ninja as well. Some of you may know him. The guy's a challenge freak. He's made more challenges than probably anybody else on the team, and has just been an awesome addition. And also, we have a DJ set now. Thanks to Jake, he was able to set up a DJ set where we got to bring on some awesome DJs like Sec Barbie, Ninjala was on there, State Farm and Metacortex did their own set, Skittish and Bus, some of you may know, and then YT Cracker. So these are just some images of our DJ sets. It's been awesome, and so we can't thank you enough, Jake. We do love you, and thanks for setting up an awesome DJ set and helping out as much as you do. So if you want to check out the shows, we do have some archived on live.neverlandctf.com, and also for our event in February, there will be more DJ sets coming. So be sure to check that out. With Roots Asylum, I'm going to let Preston give you a little bit more of a background on that. We haven't just been doing our CTF in February. We've also been doing other things. So
Roots Asylum, 1 minute. I guess I'll run through this. Roots Asylum is, we'll take it back to DEF CON, is the biggest hacking conference in the world. And so inside of DEF CON, they have a mini con for the kids. It's Roots Asylum, right? There they teach them the good ethics of hacking. They have their honor code that we try and abide by while we're there. And it's just teaching them, no malicious intent. This is for the good of people. And so Roots Asylum, our first year, this is going back to our very first year, Jake actually reached out to us after the great success we had and said we should apply to do the CTF at Roots. And so we did. And our really now great friend Melanie hit us back saying, "You guys, I love what you guys are doing, and you really need to come help us out here." And so she invited us to help out the Facebook security team in doing the Facebook CTF powered by Neverland CTF. And that's what we did. We went, we helped out, had a ton of great success, ton of great feedback, and they asked us to come back. And so we did for a second year, which was, I guess, a year ago. More great success. Everything kept going fine. And then this past year, they invited us yet again. But this time we came back as our own entity, as our own organization, the Neverland CTF at Roots Asylum. And so it went off great, and they want us back again, which is what we're going to do. Going off of that, we also brought on the first year's winner. So Connor was the winner of our first ever Neverland CTF, and so we wanted to keep it sustainable. So we said, hey, you did a great job. You're really smart. You should join us in continuing this. And so thankfully he did.
We have a lot more slides as well. Unfortunately, we're at time, so I'm just going to go ahead and jump to the end here.
We're going to tweet out a tweet with the slides on it, so you guys can always catch up on those.
Yep.
We'll do it right after.
You'll see our Twitter down here. Be sure to follow us on that. You'll see all the slides there, all the other information that we wanted to share with you, but unfortunately didn't have time to. Be sure to check out our website. We post resources on there. It's a good place to point people to if they want to learn something or they want to find out about other CTFs as well. And tell your friends. We're really on a mission here to increase the involvement of cybersecurity in schools. And so, we want you to share it with other people. And thank you very much.
All right, we got one last one before we really kick off this major event that we have, and this is super tech guy, Jeremy Cox. And he's going to let you know how to own the con. All the fun events and tripping hazards that we have. Just kidding, only tripping hazard. All right, we have Jeremy Cox.
Wonderful. Am I on? Okay, I'm on now. Let's get this thing plugged in. We'll either own the con or we'll trip over the con. But by the time we're done, okay, we going? Maybe, or maybe not. Or we'll have technical difficulties, as we do sometimes at SAINTCON, and my laptop will freeze up. It's a wonderful sound, isn't it? A little bong sound. Well, wonderful. First of all, let's go ahead and get started. First and foremost, my name's Jeremy Cox. My handle's Super Tech Guy. If you see me in the hall, feel free to come up to me and talk to me. I may or may not remember everybody's names. I'm terrible with names, but I promise I'll do my very best. Last, and then also, in addition to that, what I want you to know is one thing most and foremost while this thing boots up. Troy, who stood up here earlier, Jupiter, does an enormous amount of work for this conference. And I hope, and he's not in here right now, he was sitting just right there, but I hope that when you see him in the con that you'll reach out to him and tell him thank you, because there is no one that works harder for SAINTCON than Troy. Yeah, please do. Okay. Own the con slides, and oh, that's good. I can see my screen now. It didn't. You guys weren't hacking me on the back end and froze my computer or something, right? You got my passwords. All right. I feel secure now. Wonderful. All right. Fantastic. Okay, that's what it's supposed to look like. So welcome to SAINTCON. We hope that every year you enjoy this conference. We hope that you can take something back to your organizations, to the people you work with, and something that will be positive, something that will help you along the way. And one thing that we want to tell you is that all that you can drink is back. So thank you, Troy, for that. Afternoon snacks are also back. They'll be downstairs in the Hackers Lounge. And ultimately, get the most out of this conference. Get out of your comfort zone. Enjoy the conference. Do something different. Learn something new. Find a way to really get the most out of this conference. Presentations, trainings, leadership strand, it's all in the conference. You can find all the information on what those are at saintcon.org/schedule. All that information is posted on the website. Please use the website and you can find that information, what you need. Presentations will be in these 3 rooms. This will be separated into 3 different dividers. This is the center section, and then you've got the sides. So that's track 1, 2, and 3, and you'll find all your presentations in there. Your trainings, your leadership strand is 1 floor up in those rooms up there. And then trainings, be aware that trainings are a first come, first serve. So as you show up to trainings, if there's a training you want to go to, make sure you show up a little early and get in line to get in there. Other amazing SAINTCON opportunities. First and foremost, we have an incredible badge this year. And yeah, please. CompuKid Mike and Bash Ninja knocked it out of the park. This is an incredible badge, and we have tons of room for mini badges, and there are tons of mini badges to collect. So please go find those mini badges. These are just some of them. There are many, many, many more. If you haven't got connected to Wi-Fi, it is SAINTCON and SAINTCON 2018 in all caps. And if you haven't gotten to Slack, Troy mentioned this earlier, you need to get on here. This is the con within the con. And you'll notice that there's lots of conversation going on. We want that healthy conversation to talk about what's happening at SAINTCON. You can also find in Slack help with lots of other things like Hackers Challenge and working on the badge. And if you have questions for staff members, you can find us all within that Slack app. Hackers Challenge. There are some people that come to SAINTCON just to play this game. It is well known. It has caused lots and lots of frustration to people over the years and excitement, and people love this game. So if you haven't ever tried Hackers Challenge, we ask you to get on hackerschallenge.org. It starts in about an hour, and check it out. There are puzzles and things that would just kind of blow your mind. And it starts, there's some that are really easy, there's some that are really hard, but just take a look at it and give it a try. And I promise you, if there's nothing else that you'll learn something new from this experience. You might find yourself getting a little frustrated, but we've got lots of help to walk you through it. So the Hackers Lounge downstairs is a place where you can go to get some help. And we'll help you walk through some of these challenges and work with you so that you can compete in this game. Special thanks to our sponsors. We appreciate all of them. You can go see them downstairs. In that section outlined in red, that's a floor plan of the downstairs area. And you can go visit with these sponsors. We hope that you'll have a chance to visit with each of them. They're selling products that can be beneficial to your organizations. We also have something new this year. We have a mobile hacking community, which is going to give you the opportunity to actually take and pull data off of a phone to look at how that data looks and to actually do some really intricate, detailed work in the mobile area so that you have a chance to see exactly how do you pull a text message off a phone, maybe a phone that is dead and I can't do anything with it. They're going to teach you all sorts of really cool things in the mobile hacking community. That's where you can find them. We've got the hardware hacking community. This is where you're going to go to solder up your badge. Now, the cool thing about the badge this year is it is super simple to solder. You should be able to solder this up very, very quickly. It shouldn't take a lot of skills soldering. So if you're new to soldering, you've never soldered before, this is a great opportunity to learn how. They make a jig that can go in here and hold your headers for you, and then you can just sit on the back and solder. Okay? It's a wonderful opportunity. You can do that in the hardware hacking community. There's tons of soldering irons and tools and friendly faces there to help you out with that. They're located in that area right there. Hackers Labs is an awesome opportunity for you to go and try some of the tools that you may not have available to you. Things like Proxmarks and software-defined radios and all sorts of tools that are fairly expensive, but SAINTCON has purchased them with the hope that you guys have an opportunity to try them here, to use them, to learn how they're used, and to get a feel for what is available. And they're also located right there, right near the Hackers Lab, the hardware hacking community. The lockpick community. If you've never had an opportunity to pick a lock, who has never, ever tried picking a lock? Okay, there's a few of you out there. Please go and try to pick a lock. We can teach you how to pick a lock. We can teach you how a lock works. We can teach you about the intricacies of different security methods with protecting locks and how that works. And by the time you're done, you'll understand a little better about physical security and why it's important, because it couples so closely with what we do on a day-to-day basis, trying to protect our infrastructure, our security of our data. And the very, very most important factor sometimes of that can be physical. And so Lockpick Community will help you understand what that means. They're located right next to that same area downstairs. We got the Tamper Evident Community, which is going to show you how tamper evidence stickers and tape and little padlocks, how they can be circumvented and compromised so that you're aware of these types of issues. There's even a competition associated with Tamper Evident and that you can participate in. They're located also on the first floor, right down in that bottom section. We've got Packet Capture Community, which is basically going to teach you about Wireshark. How to use Wireshark, how do you capture packets, What does that mean? And how do you interpret the data that's in Wireshark when you're done? We've got the community classroom, which is going to have some just ad hoc talks. Most of them are posted online, and there'll be opportunities for you to learn a new skill or a new practice, something that has to do with specifically the hardware hacking community, the hacker labs, and all the other events that are happening down there. And that's located right there by the lockpick community. The vault. If you have never had a chance to check out the vault, SAINTCON has one of the coolest activities in the security community. The vault is a room, or in this case, 3 rooms this year. It's been expanded to where you actually have an opportunity to do some very physical security type work and break into it. And so if you've never tried this out, this is a great opportunity for you to go and check it out. It's downstairs, and it is amazing this year. They have done some very, very cool things to make it even more fun than it was last year. We have the red versus blue competition. If you've never sat at a Kali Linux terminal and actually hacked into something, this is an opportunity for you to do that. It'll actually teach you not only how to hack something, but also how to defend on the other side. And so they'll split you in 2 different teams. You'll have a red team and a blue team. The red team will hack, and the blue team will protect. And that's also located down on the first floor. We have Los Santos, which is a brand new thing here at SAINTCON this year. Los Santos is going to basically handcuff you to a chair and put you in a locked room. And you have to escape. Okay? Kind of a cool idea. You'll have to sign a waiver and some different things, but we hope that it'll be a lot of fun. Okay? And we've taken every precaution to make sure that nobody gets hurt. We're going to do our very best on that, but it should be a hoot. So we hope that you guys can enjoy that. That's also on the first floor in between Hackers Labs and Lockpick Village. We have the wireless hunt that starts today at 6 p.m. The wireless hunt is going to be an opportunity for you to get out of the conference center, to get out into the Provo area and to start looking for something. Okay? And that's all the details I'm going to give you. But it starts today. You can find a little bit more information on the website and how to get involved in it. That's also located down on that first floor. We have the password cracking competition. We've had people in years past go out and buy hardware at SAINTCON just to do this competition. Okay? Basically, we hand you a bunch of hashes and we say, here you go, crack them. Okay? So get some more information on the website about that. That's a fun opportunity to learn to crack passwords. The Hackers Lounge, which is downstairs in the middle section, is a great, like I said, a great opportunity, a great place to get some information about Hackers Challenge. We also have free drinks there. There's couches. There will be music and DJing. It's a great place to just chill out and relax for a little bit in between a talk or two. And that's in that center section. Another new thing we're trying this year is called SAINTCON Job Fair. SAINTCON Job Fair is an opportunity for you to connect with employers and for you as employers to connect with potential employees. So tomorrow morning from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., we're going to have a job fair upstairs on the 3rd floor in the outside section. And that's indicated by this. There's a little kind of outside area on the 3rd floor, and that's where that will be held tomorrow morning. SAINTCON After Dark. If you haven't been to SAINTCON After Dark before, we ask you to come join us at this one. This is an awesome opportunity for you to bring your family. We ask you to invite your kids to come, to invite your families to be there from Wednesday from 6:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. Bring your kids. You can teach them how to pick locks or how to solder. There'll be other activities like donkey car racing. If you haven't ever seen that, it's basically an RC car that you program. And they'll have those available for you to try and play with and to compete in. There'll be hardware hacking, specialized vault scenarios, Hackers Challenge walkthroughs, lock picking, and much, much more. It'll be a whole lot of fun for the whole family. That will be in that entire first floor. We also want to mention the Hack in the Box. They are a pop-up hackerspace that is not officially tied to SAINTCON, but we appreciate that they put this together, and it's an opportunity to kind of go off the convention area and go and enjoy some hackerspace where they've got some soldering irons and an opportunity to talk and converse one with another. Once again, all of this information is at saintcon.org. If you have any questions, most of that information will be there. If you can't find it there, please go to Slack. We're happy to help you in Slack, or you can just catch us in the hallway. If you see one of us wearing a red badge, we're the staff members and the committee members. We're happy to help you and give you directions and get you wherever you want to go. We want everyone to have a great time at the con. And because of that, we have also established a code of conduct. If you have any issues, please feel free to contact a staff member. And are you ready? Let's go.